We'll call to order the regular meeting of the Solvang City Council for July 24th, 2017. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Deuce.
Present.
Jameson. Here. Toussaint.
Here.
Zimmerman.
Present.
Mayor Richardson.
Here. And Mr. Zimmerman, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Repeat after me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's good to see a crowd. We don't get these very often. Presentation from Solvang Conference and Visitors Bureau. Tracy?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, city staff, and residents. My name is Tracy Farhad. I'm the Executive Director of the Solvang Conference and Visitors Bureau. And with me tonight is, for our year-end report presentation, is our Digital Media Director, Brenda Ball. And also in our audience is our honorary board member, Dr. Kenneth Harwood. And I also want to welcome a special guest tonight, and that is our research analyst, Lauren Schlau. We'll be introducing you to her later. So tonight we have a short video for you of our CVB measurable successes. We're always trying to find a new way to be able to present to you what we do, followed by a brief summary, and then a PowerPoint report of the CVB's marketing influence and ROI study. So feel free to ask questions at the end, of course. But first, let's enjoy Brenda's video, fingers crossed it works, and a little Danish gypsy dance music. Brenda.
the Solvang restaurant, home of the Able Skeever, and the Skeever.
Almost done. All right, didn't you all want to do a little toe tapping while you were out there? A nice Danish
Brenda.
gypsy song.
Brenda, did you do that?
She did it, Brenda. did.
Fantastic job. Good presentation. Thank you for that.
It'll be even faster with a faster internet service next. So just wanted to say it truly takes a village to market our village to the world. And we aim to promote Solvang, obviously, to a higher spending, longer staying visitor within our California drive markets, plus other domestic and our lucrative international markets as well. And all with the mission to enhance our Solvang lifestyle. By leveraging your investment in tourism, the CVB partners with other area agencies, local businesses, and the inquiring media to raise the awareness of Solvang within a very competitive destination marketplace. And this past fiscal year, highlights included co-ops, regional co-ops and top-tier publications with Visit the San Ynez Valley, Visit Santa Barbara, the Central Coast Tourism Council, and Visit California. My favorites were the 9 languages that were translated into all those different that we now have in our visitor center, plus Westway's 4-page advertorial with over 1 million readership in Southern California. Other hits were a first foray into the meetings and incentive market and industry for our midweek and off-peak visitors. And we did that with local hotels and event partners down at Anaheim Stadium. We pitched planners on our conference village, plus our sales department's new trackable reporting capability through a cloud-based back-end software. Try saying that 4 times real fast. Both real home runs for the CVB. Now, another sales initiative took Solvang to China with 22 other Visit California delegates while we rolled out the red carpet and the welcome mat, securing site visits and direct bookings for baking classes, walking tours, trolley tours, and hotel rooms. So trust me, it takes quite the group effort on behalf of both the home and the away teams. So between PR, direct sales, advertising, social media, promotions, visitor center services, events, and media hosting, the CVB provides visitors countless ways to become motivated to travel to Solvang. So tonight we have the final results of just one of those ways that we measure and how your investment in tourism marketing has paid off. So please help me welcome Lauren Schlau of Lauren Schlau Consulting. And we have a handout for you as well, but you have to wait till the end to look at it.
council members. Lauren Schlau Consulting. I'm based in Los Angeles, down the road a piece. Thank you for having me come today and make this presentation on behalf of the Visitor Conference and Visitor Bureau. And this is not in my script, but I just want to say, I've said this before to different people, and I may have said it to you, and even if I have, I'm going to say it again, that I do a lot of work with many destinations and DMOs throughout the state, and even outside the state. And given the size of your community and the amount of support that you give to this bureau, it's amazingly commendable. Tourism is a clean industry. It supports jobs. It brings in revenues. It creates, like Tracy said, a lifestyle enhancement for the residents here. The Visitor Bureau works hard to do what we call balanced tourism, to optimize visitors, not just to bring numbers in, but to go after the certain types that are the most high yield. And what we found in this study, essentially, is that's exactly what's happening with their media. So you can go to the first slide. Thank you, Brenda, for doing this. We just wanted to be very transparent with you, so these letters are transparent and you can't see them, but we but we have a copy. We have all the copies of this for you anytime. So the key points of this study was we started with everybody that comes to the website who we found through their ad agency said they were directed there. And the way we know they were directed there is all the media that the Visitor Bureau is putting out has solvangusa.com, and people were typing that in as opposed to just being there organically. So we know that the website is effectively gathering people, attracting people based on them seeing the ads that you just saw. It is converting about, 30% of all the website viewers who have not already decided and said, yes, we're very influenced by these ads and by this website to come to actually make a visit to Solvang. And what we found is those, what we call media influence visitors who actually came here, they stay longer. More of them stay overnight. Those who do stay longer, about another night, longer than their other visitors. They spend more money in the destination as an individual and as a group, and they are higher income, and actually a higher percentage stay in hotels. So all the good things that are the goals of the Visitor Bureau's marketing are happening, we found through this study. What we also found is these media-influenced visitors, while they may only represent 5% of the total annual visitors, and we go back to 2012 on that, and we had 1.5 million visitors that we measured back then. But they account for 10% of the total spending. So they spent about $9.6 million, and back in 2012, visitors spent about $95 million here. So you're getting more bang for your buck on the visitors who are seeing the ads and using the website. The marketing investment, the return on investment, there's many different ways to measure that. We'll come into that in a minute. I'm not going to go through millions of numbers with you, but just to give you a magnitude of the range. When you take the visitor tax generated against the Solvang advertising budget, it's a 2-to-1 return on investment. And if you look at all that visitor spending I just mentioned, that $9.6 million against the Solvang ad budget, that's a $53 to $1 return on investment, which is very good. So you can go to the next slide. So what this says of the groups seeing the Solvang CVB advertising and using this website, 65.9% actually visited. So we're calling that the gross conversion rate. They may or may not visited, but they saw it, they came. But of those visitors, another 61%, and that comes out to about almost 61,000 individuals that were using the ads and the website, had not decided yet on a destination, and that impacted them to decide to come here. So that net conversion rate is 30% overall. And in addition, 70% of the people who saw the ads also said, we are influenced to visit Solvang again in the future, which is great. So that's kind of got legs. It's not just a one-time deal. So we just kind of summarize those numbers for you. essentially, so it's almost a 500,000. Now, Tracy was mentioning 1.6 or 1.8 million page views. Of course, once they get into the website, they use a lot of pages, but it's about 500,000 people a year right now on the website. So, okay, we'll go to the next one. So the actual kind of investment dollars here, 9.6 million in total spending by this 60,000 group of people who are influenced by these ads. Another 11 million for those who would take a future trip. Now, that's not an annual number because we're not sure exactly when. We do know when they're going to come. It's in the study, but over the time of frame when they're going to come. Most of them will come back within a year. The return on investment, which, as we're saying, is the return from Solvang CVB marketing investment on behalf of the city to market the destination in terms of visitor spending or taxes, measured as a ratio of dollars returned for each $1 invested. So it's dollars of return to dollars invested. So like I said before, the ROI is taxes against the budget is $2.1 returned, $53 returned for visitor spending, ROI against the Solvang ad budget. And you can actually see that in numbers on this page, so it's a little more clear. There's a let's say the first line, which is Solvang CVB advertising budget. The return there based on visitor spending is 9.6 million. Solvang CVB advertising only budget's 180,400, and that's where we get that 53.1. And if we look at the future visitors, it's actually higher, but the best to concentrate on the current visitors. We have another way of measuring it is not just the advertising budget, but their entire marketing budget, which is 572,000. You can see that in the third column on the second line. That ROI is 16-1 against total visitor spending returned. The CVB total budget share, so the CVB gets from the city $720,000. The visitor spending of 9.6 million returns 13.4 times on that one. The CVB total budget ROI to visitor spending, so this is their total entire budget, 818,000. It's an 11, almost 12-1 ROI. And then against the taxes only portion, their advertising against taxes only is 2-1. So you can see all those different ways. None of them are right or wrong. They're just different ways of saying how impactful the spending is. One of the things that we asked all the visitors that took this survey, by the way, 860 people responded to this internet survey, which is a very good response rate. So we asked them different questions. How much, very or extremely influential, somewhat, not at all influential. It was a 5-point rating scale. How influential was the advertising or materials that you saw on the following? Considering a future trip to Solvang, that's that 71% I mentioned. Taking the trip, 61%. So these people weren't not necessarily decided until they saw this stuff and to come. To see more attractions than expected, so they're already decided, but they're actually going to see more attractions, 58%. To stay overnight in Solvang, this is important because this converted day visitors to overnight. That's very key. Stay overnight, 53%, more than half. To participate in more area activities than they expected, almost half, 48%, and to stay longer than expected. And we can see that in the results because they stayed another extra night compared to a typical visitor, which you can see on the next slide. Oh no, so then we looked at jobs that are being supported by the actual or the future based on their spending. There's a lot of formulas that go into this, has to do with how much it takes spending to support one job in each of the various categories, but essentially we're saying that their visitor marketing is supporting 75 local jobs, 76 local jobs at this point. 28 of the jobs, or 37%, are in lodging of hotel motel type. There's other lodging down at the bottom, another 1 to 2 jobs, so roughly 30 jobs, 32 jobs in three jobs in lodging. And then we have, this is a final thing, it's a little profile of who these people are, mainly Californians. It's a little bit skewed just because of the Californians are the highest share of your visitors, and they responded, but this is who they are. 16% did come from other states. Most of these people have been here before, but they weren't necessarily planning to come back. Some of them were influenced by the ads to come back or come back sooner. 70% stayed overnight. That was very significant. And 86% stayed in local hotels. The top activities that they did, 88% dined in restaurants, 86% walked around Solvang Village, and 79% shopped here. Their daily person spending $145 compared to, like, what was that number from the study? It was pretty low, much lower, like 95 or something. Much higher spending here. A little bit more skewed to couples and families in this particular response because they're a little bit older. The one thing we found in this study was they're a little bit older than the typical visitor from 2012. Although those people are older now too, who knows? But and the annual median income was much higher at $94,000. So that gives you a sense of who is seeing the ads, who's coming, what they're doing, and how they're influenced, and what the return is on that. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to.
On your California visitors, were you able to differentiate between where they came from?
Yes, we have very finite differentiation on that, yes.
And what did you find out?
Mainly southern, but southern beyond just local southern. It's outside of the county, mainly Southern California, and then some Central Coast and some northern.
And then northern later.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
I've got a few questions. First is on the ROI numbers. Do you have any kind of baseline to see how we compare with other tourist-related cities?
Yes, there are numbers out there. I didn't look into them at this point. They're out there. The issue is always what is being compared to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples, and that's always of concern. But yeah, there are.
If we could find something that would be similar to Solvang.
We can take a look at that.
It
Sure.
would be interesting. And then on your spending, the $145,
yeah.
does that include lodging also?
Yes.
Is that part of the spending?
Yes.
That is per person also.
Correct. So it's per capita daily. So if you have two people and the lodging portion of that is a certain percentage, it's double that for,
Okay.
So it's not the lodging rate, it's their spending on lodging.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you.
What's exciting, you have a handout in front of you. This brochure has brought all these numbers together. We also did a comparison of the 2012 study. And what I found fascinating was not just the dollar amount. I mean, where the overall visitor profile study showed the average at $58, and now it's up to $145. It's not that it's different from what the overall visitors were. It means that the folks that we are influencing to come versus those who might be coming or part of a day trip, but those who come and spend the night, that their spend is higher. It was also very interesting to see that the median household income, which was $79,000 back in 2012, is up at $94,000, and that's well above the national average. So that's really exciting. A lot of great reading in here. I welcome you to it. We have other copies that we'll leave at the table so people can have that before they leave, especially for those who are considering a future trip and that what we are doing is influencing their travel, and that's our #1 goal. So in closing, you have those highlights, and please share. And in fact, follow us on all of our social media channels as well, because you can see when you follow that what great things people are saying about Solvang, and it'll just melt your heart to know how good everyone feels and what a good job we do here locally. So I want to thank you, City Council, for securing Solvang's future through tourism marketing with the CVB, and as always, we're at your service.
I want to thank you for the good work, Tracy. You spent our money wisely.
Thank you. I'm gonna quote
Very
him on
good
that
job.
one. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is City Manager's report.
Just one item I want to report on. We just received notice Friday that your finance department won the Certificate of Achievement of Excellence in Financial Reporting for the 2016 CAFR. That's the 24th year that we've received that reward.
Terrific.
So just want to congratulate your Administrative Services Director. I think she's watching in her office. But
Yay, Sandra. Ryan and I had a little class on CAFRs, and we understand them better, and it's really an important thing that what she's doing is a fantastic job.
well, yours meets all the requirements.
Yes. Next, we have public communications, written or verbal. At this time, please direct comments to City Council regarding consent calendar items or matters not on the agenda, both in the jurisdiction of the council. I have several speaker slips. Brian Cheney. followed by Ellen Albertini.
Peter Mayor, Council. I was here in May to inquire about the loss of the San Luis Reservoir water that we had secured. And a couple of weeks after the report, I was given this little draft by Mr. Vidro, sent it to me in the mail. And I was trying to make heads or tails out of it. And, you know, believe it or not, I've lived here for 60 years. I know a lot of people. And so I contacted a friend of mine from the Department of Water Resources, and I got a kind of a better little idea. And it sounds like we actually not only did we lose more than 500 acre feet, but we lost closer to 1,000 acre feet. That was suggested at the May meeting. So that's like $600,000 in a loss. You know, and I just couldn't help but watch these other things, and I was going, the San Luis Reservoir, it's only 6 feet down right now from the time it spilled in March. So if anybody's thinking about buying any more water, the potential for spilling again for this next year is pretty good. And that one of that is the 300 acre feet that we had secured for the other. That was part of that 1,000 from Antelope Valley, according to this. Anyway. And so I did a little research on that, and so we got to buy that again. So that's where it goes from 500 to 1,000. Okay. And then I just was looking at different things and just the costs that we've done over the last 12 years. And like our bathroom on Alisal, you know, that's $2,000 a square foot. That's $1 million. The square, the Centennial Square, by the time we did the demo on the old bathroom, that was almost $500,000. You know, and the drilling of the water wells here in the last couple of years, I don't know, we've spent $1 million plus on that, and we've gotten very little out of it. Matter of fact, I walk around town a lot, and I talked to the drillers at the time. And there was 3 wells that they drilled, and they were suggesting that they be collapsed. And to my surprise, most of them were all cased. I was going, why would you do that? They projected that there was only like 9 to 12 gallons a minute out of the Veterans Hall well. But we cased it anyway at a really high cost. You know, and we were the only ones in February of 2005 that lost out on the secured money from FEMA when it was declared a national disaster for California. And it just, we're going into this little factor of all these little things that we I know it's nice to have a nice presentation on how much money we're bringing in, but we're also losing a lot. And I don't know exactly how we correct this, but I noticed the other thing. I said we have the best looking alley anywhere in the country on Alnor. We have pavers everywhere. And I know what it's for. I'm general engineering contractor, so I'm aware well of it. But a whole acre of pavers is not going to regenerate the groundwater in Solvang. I know it won't. It's impossible. You can do a parking lot that has no dirt on it, will do the same thing. And it just seems that we keep doing the same thing over and over and over. And I don't know where we stop, but it seems like we spend a lot of unusual money for things that should be about half the price. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Ellen Albertini. Followed by Fred Koval.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor Richardson, Brad Vidro, and staff. I just want to take a few minutes of time to share with you, which some of you already know, that the Senior Center is looking forward to the possibility of a new center. We're at our infancy steps, but we are on county property. We are within the city. So as we've had spoke to Brad in the past, brought the plans forward to Brad, we are want to be the best neighbors that we can because the city is so good to us, and we serve members of the city, we serve people in the entire valley. But because we are on county property, we are now renewing and revising our lease with the county as we move forward. Our lease was put in place in 1983 when the building was first erected where it is now, and it goes on a 5-year to 5-year to 5-year plan. But as we move forward and envision our new building, we are rewriting our lease. The building that we envision will be something for our center members, for our community. We want to take care of our seniors the best way possible, but we want our building to take care of itself so we can take care of our seniors even better, and we can take care of our community as we change and grow, because the dynamics of the communities, we're just going to have more and more seniors coming into the center. Therefore, within what we plan on doing is, aside from being a day-to-day operational center, we'd like to take care of ourselves as an activity center when we are not there, to open some of it up to the public as the possibility of a spot for people to have meetings and other activities. But we don't want to be a bad neighbor, and we want to take our city into consideration. So as we work with the county on revitalizing our lease, we would like to take into consideration what the city does now. Even though we are county property, what are your guidelines? What you would, noise ordinance, hours of operation. We have to incorporate this within our lease, and we would like to work with the city on what's best for all of us. I don't know if that's an item you need to bring forward, but we would like to work with the city on that to make it workable for all of us.
What Ellen is alluding to is leasing and renting the space at any evenings. And she wants to make sure that we're agreeable to that, because it will be competing with the Vets Hall, plus there are other ordinances it has to follow. And she was asked to bring it to the city council to consider it. If we feel like that it's not going to influence or impact our operation, I see no reason why she just can't go ahead. But it's up to the council to decide that, and if we want to bring it back as an agenda item to talk about, we can agree to that, or if not, we can just let her go ahead and do what she has to do.
Yes.
What kind of permits do you have to have from the county?
We have already been working with the county. We have some plans.
So you're just talking about building permits? You don't have to have, they don't have to have a conditional use permit with the county?
No, we're at the very infancy stage of where we're going over our plans with them. They are reworking our lease for us. They've looked over everything that we've presented to them, and they're happy with it. But having anything, reworking our lease, we need to make sure that we take the city into consideration. And they're fine with us using it as a venue when we are not there, as long as we take the city into consideration, which means there's noise, if there's events going on and so forth. But our main focus is to take care of our seniors. But we want the building to take care of itself too. We want to be able to have that to take care of itself. So it's not a competition. It's just to invest in the building, invest in our seniors, which is investing in our community. So we've had our beginning stages with Connie Smith, who is the lease officer for the county, and we've met with Mr. Uli, who is the county's architect. So they are working on our lease, and once we have that in hand, they are going over some of the plans that we've shown them, but the plans are not concrete at this time. They still need some adjustments. We've also shown those to Brad, and we've shown them to, yes, thank you, Holly. And they have gone over the plans to see where we're going with that. It's the beginning stages. We're looking, be 3 years before anything's
How much larger is your center going to be? How many more square feet?
We're at 2,600 square feet, and we are looking at 3,000 square feet on the bottom. It's a two-story, so a total of 6,000 square feet.
And what about parking then?
And we will be, it won't impact the parking. We actually look at having extra parking spots available, 8 extra parking spots available.
Any other questions?
More of a comment. A year and a half or so ago, the Visitors Bureau brought in a proposal on the Vets Hall. And one of the things that we talked about at that time was, this was in regards to conferences, things like that. And one of the things that came up was the extensive community use of the Vets Hall. And so I think, with what you're doing, could possibly alleviate some of that concern. Could it?
Yes.
Okay. Just
Yes.
comment, some thoughts on it.
Any other comments? Do we need to bring it back, or is it all right for her to go ahead and?
You know, I think I probably need to hook up with the county and what they're exactly looking for, because we did give them at staff level a letter of support of the project.
Yes.
So we did give that. So I
Yes.
need to see if they need something more concrete. If they do, then maybe we'll need to bring something back to them.
So you'll follow that up?
But yeah,
Okay.
we could go through and essentially give you what requirements we would have if it was a city project, and that may help lay that out a little better. So.
Okay.
They're looking, the time frame is probably another 3 to 4 months before our new lease is complete. And unfortunately, Connie is undergoing another knee surgery, so she's the only one working on them. It's kind of on the back burner. But I think it's very admirable that we come, from them actually asking us to make sure that we check with you, which we would, because, it's all for our community and we don't want to have any problems. But it would be, our building is an old crumbly building that we just keep putting patches on, and there's really no room to do anything else with it, which we would like to.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you. Thank
thanks.
you for your time.
Thanks for being here. Fred Koval?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Fred Cowell. Quick highlight summary of ID1's special meeting last Wednesday. Got moved from Tuesday to Wednesday. And I've got 9 items here, but I'd like to take them in reverse order. The last 2 were not on their agenda per se, but they were the most important ones. The last one has to do with the Whittier fire, which you all got a copy today, I believe, and Sunday's paper. And I'd like to call your attention to page 2, and it was the most important thing, and this was brought out by the ID1 members and Chris Dahlstrom, the manager. A major concern is the sedimentation that could flow into the lake and the water quality impacts the water purveyors will face at their treatment facilities. And so here's what that means. What was echoed by ID number 1? First, before this ever came in the newspaper, if we have some good fall rains, the mud and the ash will overwhelm the flow into the river. It'll be muddy water everywhere. And that's going to really task the South Coast and their ability to remove that turbancy. What does that mean? That means they are going to look for every way possible to remove that water before the rains come. What impacts will that have on the downstream users? Will they be allowed to have that flow occur in a timely fashion? Or will they convince the Bureau of Reclamation to no, to take that water? Knowing that for several months into the fall, and maybe into the spring, early spring, that water will be unusable. The second item has to do with the biological opinion, the gag order that's still in place for months now, and no resolution and when the Bureau is going to release it to the public. What the fears were, based on all of the indications that ID1 is getting, both their attorney and Chris Dahlstrom attending meetings with DWR and the Central Coast Water Authority, and also the State Water Resources Control Board, and that is that it's going to be called a jeopardy opinion. And what they see coming is that there will be a 40 to 50% of the Lake Etchuma water set aside for the fish, because they can't put it in the fish ladder. There is no flow for most of the year. So what that means to us is that our ability to pump out of our 2 existing river wells and any future wells will also be reduced by that amount, 40 to 50%. It's going to impact everybody, even the riparian pumpers, all the way down the river, and affect the cities, especially Lompoc. The above narrows account, the below narrows account will be diminished by that amount. It's coming. Now, added to that, in 2 years, we'll have the Groundwater Sustainability Act, mandated by the state. Another shoe to fall. And then, finally, what just happened to us here this last Tuesday at the Board of Supervisors meeting, where they put in another layer of bureaucracy and requiring what they call flow meters, read water meters, on any future applications. It'll no longer be ministerial. You will have to jump through the hoops for the regulations that they have yet to develop. Now, in addition to that, the county, who has no contract for purveying any water, is saying the master contract for the water that flows out of the lake will be done by the county. And it's a brand new contract. So it's going to be a major issue.
Thank you. I have no other speaker slips for public comment. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. For council comments and requests, would you like to start, Mr. Zimmerman?
Just want to welcome everybody tonight, and thank you everybody for all your participation, Fred and everybody else, and look forward to a great meeting. Thank you.
No real comments tonight, but kind of in lieu of Brian Cheney's comments about the slow reservoir, I would like to hear from Matt a little bit about an email I received with some, it looks like mitigation actions that you're taking to try to reduce the spill.
Can you do that off the top of your head, Matt? I know you weren't prepared. Oh, that's right. Just a vote of confidence, you're always prepared.
Good evening, Mayor Richardson and council members. I could speak about it. Unfortunately, I don't think it's appropriate at this point because those are sensitive things that are still in the works.
Oh, okay.
And I don't want to jeopardize that, but I should be able to give you an update at the next city council meeting.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Deuce.
Thank you. Comment on Fred's article in about the Whittier fire. This is about land management, and I know this has nothing to do with Solvang, but this is kind of a pet peeve of mine. Historically, California, and this goes back into tree rings. Historically, California burned every 13 years. The last time there was fire on the Whittier footprint was in 1955, the Refugio fire, 62 years ago. And I remember that. Me too. Just barely, but it made an impact on me.
Easy, Joan. I really remember.
This buildup of brush is explosive. I forget how many thousands of gallons of gasoline per acre was burning but it burns hot. Hot enough to melt aluminum. We saw the engine block of the Buellton's new sheriff's unit running down in front of it. Aluminum melts at what, 1,300 degrees, 14, something like that? It was a hot fire. Now, if there had been smaller burns, hopscotching, we wouldn't be looking at from Bee Rock to Bear Creek, that watershed piling crap into Kachuma. This is the real problem. It's management, forest management. Fire is part of the ecosystem here. And we gotta let things burn, but we can have some control and do it at the right time of year. And pick the areas. That can be done. So get a hold of Salud. He's our congressman. And let him know that the Forest Service has got to change their policies. That's it.
Ms. Jameson?
I just wish to express my gratitude to those men and women who did fight that fire. And it's still burning, but it's contained. And I just hope they keep it contained and it doesn't decide to go somewhere else. But thank you all very much.
I have no comments. Correspondence received by the council. Is there any comments on any that we have received?
I think one might come up in later discussions of an item.
Okay. Item 4, approval of the agenda. Anyone, is the agenda satisfactory to everybody, the way we got it? I guess it is. The council minutes of July the 10th, is there any additions, corrections, or deletions to those minutes? If not, can I have a motion accepting?
I'll move.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passed 5-0.
I just have a question. Did we remember to turn the light on out front? Good, okay. Where's the Oh, good, thank you. There's a gentleman in the audience that says thank you very much.
On to the consent agenda. Does anybody want to pull either of those two items? Can I have a motion accepting the consent calendar?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second it. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passed 5-0. On to the regular agenda.
Item 7, request for change to Solvang trolley license in regards to pickup locations.
Staff report.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, at your March 27th meeting just a few months back, the City Council approved an extension for 2 years and 4 months to the Solvang Trolley's license agreement to operate on the city streets. One of the conditions of that license agreement indicates that the operator shall make necessary arrangements, which is early morning coning off of the street, to be assured that it is available should weather conditions exist that will require a location to be used, which means it'll be over 85 degrees that day. I've had a request from the operator to try to solidify that area, in particular the area in front of the Blue Windmill, which is on Copenhagen, to the west of 2nd Street. And they've been using that spot. They had been using that spot for about a month, and then we received a complaint from one of the adjacent businesses, and so that this has brought this to an issue where the operator would like to get that secured as his shady drop-off location by the city council. As you recall, we went through this operation several years ago when the trolley used to operate the shady location in front of what was the old Rabobank, which is now Copenhagen House. And at that point, the council chose not to designate that as the shady location. So since that time, the operator has limited his operations to more of the lower temperature days and lost business on those hotter days. So the operator is here and may want to speak a little bit to that, but essentially my authority as city manager does not allow me to add an additional location. So I had indicated we would need to bring this before the city council for that. I did put some alternatives to the your operations today. One is you could modify the terms to allow that as his pickup. Two would be identify an additional area that would be acceptable for temperatures over 85 degrees. 3 would be to modify the temperature requirement for the operation at a shady location from 85 to 90, move it up to 5 degrees, which would give them more days without needing that shaded location. And then the third would just be to make no changes to the license agreement, which would put him back to where he's limited to just those days where it's not going to be over 85. That's the gist of the staff report. I'm available for questions, and the operator is here to talk about his request for that.
Are there any questions? The staff report first. Sal, would you like to speak?
Okay. City Mayor, good evening. Good evening, City Councils, Brad Vidrio, City Manager. Okay. The main concern for us is about the horses. They take care about the horses really well. Our customers, we have customers that they are seniors or are people that don't have the capability to work, to walk all the time, and it's unfair. And little kids, and it's unfair get those under this sun. Mainly, our business income is in summer, and it's when the hot they are. Okay, and then we are looking for have a shady place to complain with the city regulations. We talk with the people or neighbors about the use that spot in particular outside of the Hamlet Square. They say everything is okay, we can do that, but unfortunately, they give me one face, and that soon I give the back, they come to the city and say completely the opposite thing. I have witness that was with me when I talk with those people. I don't know why they don't just give me the face and say, you know what, I am not agree. We can work or looking for another place. That's why now we are here. Okay. I have a suggestion that we can find a spot permanently for the trolley. The city suggests you can give us a spot in the parking lot next to the visitor center. And I find if you can provide 7 spots next to the hotel, I think, what is the name of the hotel?
King Frederick.
King Frederick. We can set up there a spot to park in the shade. If it's not enough shade for those trees, and just in case, it's a good place that we can set up a canopy, something temporary that we can use. And actually, the place that we are looking is used for those hot days, not for permanently.
You're talking about the far western end of the parking lot too,
Yes,
and up against that last row?
Yeah.
Or just on one side?
using one side. Yeah, we can come inside the parking lot, turn around and looking for that spot and park right there. Unfortunately, we have a curb in front where the newspaper box are.
Oh, yeah.
If we remove a little piece of bush that is already there and a piece of concrete, making flat, we can just go forward and get into the streets. But if we do that, we don't gonna be exposed to the people outside. That is gonna impact. But we can balance that if you allow to have a sign, permanent sign pointed is the Solvang station for the trolley there in the street. Because right now we are not allowed to put on a sign there in the street.
Right.
But if you can help us and modify that and agree, and that spot can be a permanent spot for the when we need the shade, that can be perfect, and that way we can be happy, everybody. Because this thing, at this point, my license say I have the right to looking for a spot to shade the horses, and then you let me the hands free that I can pick any spot I find and I can use. But again, I'm gonna have a complaint with the people, and then we will be here again. I want to stop this and don't come back recurrently every summer.
You know, one of the options that was mentioned here is to change the shade requirement temperature from 85 to 90 degrees. Is that doable? Is that harmful to your animals? Is that
Well, that range of the temperature we can handle on, but unfortunately, a lot of days, like the past week, we have a temperature reach 90 already at 11:30 and stay over 90 all day long until 7:30 in the night. We never reach 95. That means I can still working if I have a shady spot.
right?
But if I don't have the shady spot, I lost those days, 4 days in a row, to work all day long. It's a lot of money for us.
Yeah, sure.
And unfortunately, big part of the year we work getting losses. Our main income is in summer. And if we restrict that time to work, we can't survive. And I want to, this business, we bought the business 10 years ago when in your words, Mayor, I remember, I never gonna forget that. Not somebody give a dime for the trolley. And we worked really hard to get the trolley with the reputation back, bring the people to the attraction. We are successful, thanks God, support of my family. At this point, we create 30 jobs in the town because we grow. We rescue 2 businesses that was closed for more than 2 years, every business. We remodel it. We invest in the money, all assets, not from just for the work here in the trolley, all assets in all the time that we have working. An investment here because we are happy here. We consider this our home.
Yes.
And we feel is give something back, creating those jobs. And now we are jeopardize our business because the trolley is the vertebral column of our business. We need that running. And the more important, we have sponsors that support the horses. They give us money to feed those horses. And we, in exchange, advertise those business. And some of those business, when the trolley is not running, they lost 30% of their sales that day, just because the trolley is not on the streets, believe it or not. It's one of the more successful way to advertise the business in Solvang, because we have the people that are looking for get a place where they're gonna dinner, where they wanna sleep, where they wanna buy souvenirs, and we pointed the business that support us. Not only affect us if the trolley is not running, that affect those business too. We can say Olsen Bakery, Birkhorn Bakery, the restaurant around here,
We got Hotel Cork.
Hotel Cork, Actors Corner Cafe, Ingeborg Chocolates, Designs in Gold, the Artistic Pony Studio, Solvang Knives, just for mention few. And one thing that I want tell us, because you know me, when the people complain about us, come to the city and lie. It really is a lie. They send letters, lie. They complain with the animal control and lie. I have here our veterinarian, because I have the city forward a mail that is somebody complained about our horses. Our veterinarian is here today because he want to speak about how we'll trade the horses. The only that I am looking for you is some support to still running.
Okay, thank you, Sal.
Thank you.
We'll take it from here.
Sal, I've got a question for you.
Yes.
Your proposal or idea about the parking lot using 7 spaces there, would that be your permanent stop then, or would it just be the hot weather stop?
I can use that only in the hardware spot. That way I don't use those 7 slants.
Okay, so that would be a hot weather stop.
Yeah.
When do you, okay, for hot weather, when do you rope it off? Do you rope that area off like you're doing on the street right now? Do you rope that off in early in the morning to make sure those, in anticipation of it being over 80, 85 degrees?
I have to be that really early in the morning or almost in the night, because the other way, the sheriff department is not allowed to move the cars if they block these spots.
Okay, so 7 spaces. How many spaces are you? How many parking spaces are you using right now?
5.
You're using 5.
I'm using 5 only because the front of the horses is just in the corner before the curb.
Yeah.
But I don't need more space. In the case of we use the parking lot, we have to have some safety space in front of the horses, not just right in the curb. We need the horses a little back to have a safety spot around.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, on hot days or anticipated hot days, those parking spaces are lost all day long.
And that's okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all. I just wanted that clarified for my.
Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, and if it's too hot, like we pass 98, because if it's 95, I stop. I stay in the shade and wait until the temperature drop and I can work again. But if I saw the temperature go over 98, I quit. I take my horses back to home. I want to be there with that. It's like I stay in the oven, you know. No.
Any other questions?
Are there other people in your family that want to speak? Are there other speakers?
I have a lot of speaker slips.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we'll call. Do you have a speaker slip up here? Yeah. I'll call you then. Okay.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Do you want to give this?
Yeah, they'll call me.
All right. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Sal. I have several speaker slips regarding this item. Dutch Howling, followed by Claudia Arona.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Mr. Vidro, and staff. Thank you for allowing me this time to address the situation at hand. I will tell you that I'm an employee of SAL and the trolley company. I'm a wrangler and a tour guide. I work part-time. I'm a retiree. I want to tell you that when I first got involved with this, I was very proud of the fact that I was working doing this. So I mentioned to several of my friends on Facebook that I'm working on with horses in Solvang. And immediately they all went, oh, the town that's got the horses that take the trolley rides. Oh, yeah, we've done that, we've done that. People I never would have believed in my life would have came to Solvang, all of a sudden backed it up and said, yeah, Solvang's great and the trolley is wonderful. I think it's a real shot in the arm for the city in general. People associate that trolley with Solvang and vice versa, they associate the city with the trolley. The concern of the family, I think, is just, and I think it's viable. It deserves your attention to look at the situation at hand and see if there's an equitable compromise that can be reached by all the parties involved. The Orona family doesn't want anything special. They want an opportunity to make a living. They want an opportunity to be great citizens in Solvang and commit to the growth of Solvang and their business. And finally is the treatment of the horses. At any time, I would suggest that anybody on the council or in the city can visit us at any time to see how the horses are treated and to get firsthand an idea of what goes on out there with the trolley. It's easy to watch it go by all day and think, well, you know, that's good. Come out with us one time. See what we do. See how we do it. And you'll have a new appreciation. Now, Hans was very instrumental a few weeks ago in taking a tour with us, and he actually ran one of the tours. He taught me more in 15 minutes than I've learned in 25 minutes of reading. So it was thank you again for that. In closing, I just want to say, please, with all the efforts that you can muster for this great attraction and this part of Solvang and a part of Solvang's history in the future, please, let's work together to reach a compromise that allows everybody to benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Dutch. Claudia.
Good evening, City of Solvang, Jim Richardson, Mayor, council members, and Brad Vidro and city staff. Thank you for having us here. Solvang Trolley and Carriage Company has a history of 53 years serving Solvang visitors and residents alike. We promote tourism and culture. We, as Dutch mentioned, are a highlight of the unique California destination that Solvang is. And we also collaborate with local community organizations. And we look forward to continuing our operation for many, many years. Under our ownership over the last 10 years, we have implemented an educational program in our tours by fabulous and knowledgeable tour guides. I didn't know you had joined our ranks, Hans. I'm sorry I missed that. We provide entertainment, mobility, hospitality, and information about Solvang to visitors to our town. We've contributed to the promotion of the town by bringing Univision Network, which is the largest Spanish language TV and network in 2008. And we collaborate with our Visitors Bureau with channels like Channel 22 LA, Channel TV Network, Channel 38, Central Coast Travel Network. We were got interviewed by Carl Waters, best known for his role as Apollo Creek in Rocky for Travel Network. And right now we are talking to the Telemundo Network to come and do a feature as well. We also collaborate in parades with the Atterdag Village, Solvang Senior Center, the City of Solvang, Danish Days Foundation, Solvang Big Centers Bureau, Solvang Chamber of Commerce, and also most recently the San Lorenzo Seminary. We've grown from just having a streetcar and 2 horses to having 2 streetcars, 2 motorized trolleys, and 4 working horse teams. We also restored the ice cream shop and the restaurant, creating jobs for 30 people. Some of them are full-timers that have families of their own. Some of them are retirees. But I think the most fulfilling, personally for me, is giving the opportunity to give a first entry position to high school students that are just learning new skills to join the workforce. And my father has already mentioned all the businesses that we collaborate with to bring them, some of our visitors, to their storefronts. We're featured in many blogs, social media, and photographs, which are now very effective ways to promote businesses and bring more visitors to the town, so like we have seen in the presentation by Solvang CVB. For the last 6 years, our ticket outlet has been located at 1618 Copenhagen Drive, in one of the shops located at the Hamlet Square with the blue windmill. As you're aware, out of our own conviction for humane treatment of our animals, as a courtesy to visitors who will wait up to an hour to ride the trolley under hot conditions, and as required by our licensing contract, we must rest the horses under the shade for 10 minutes in between tours. Many of our riders are seniors and children. And while we are open year-round, we operate at a loss for most of the year, making the summer a very critical time for us to do business. We must rally and operate as often as possible, and it's just a shame that it happens to be when the weather is least appropriate to ride. So that being said, we are requesting for your help to find a consistent parking space for the trolley. Our license currently says that we can pick a sensible spot that we most see fit. And while we believe that the spots outside of the Copenhagen House or the Hamlet Square are ideal because they're right across from the visitor center, we understand that not all of the storefront tenants share our views. Even though I think that the trolley does a great job of bringing people from the Alisal, Copenhagen area to areas like the First and Second Street, where tourists might be less likely to venture into. So thank you so much. We look forward to collaborating with you to find a solution.
Thank you, Claudia. Sam Tanksley. Followed by Julian Lopez.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council Member. Hans, I want you to come with me. Full disclosure, of the two jobs, two of the 4 jobs that I work are here in Solvang. I live in Santa Barbara.
Wow.
So I'm unlikely to vote for anybody on the council, just out of the jurisdiction. So I was raised in a tourist town. I am very aware of what tourists do. I am very aware that the lifeblood of this town is tourism. One of the most unique, fascinating, and interesting things is the trolley. Now, I've ridden the trolley before, and I did the whole Solvang thing with my wife. We've lived 20 years here in this area. I'm now a tour guide, which is part of why I'd love to have Hans along, because I am driven by history. I love history, and I love tourists. I've watched Santa Barbara City do the stupidest things where they've regulated out of existence different businesses that are an advantage and employment and a happiness for residents. I have never, well, you hear stories in New York, the carriage trade, how horses are dropping in their harness and such. That's not going to happen here. The family that's dealing with these horses love the horses. I love the horses. I have never met Belgian draft horses before, and I'm used to horses. I am just blown away how sweet these horses are. We need to meet somewhere where even if it's building a quick, easy trellis so the customers can stand or even sit in the shade while they're waiting, because it takes the trip, it takes as long as it takes. Being able to talk about how chocolate is unique to each country because the bitter fruit of the chocolate combined with sugar has been held as a state secret by each of these countries, which is why we have Belgian chocolate, why we have Dutch chocolate, and pointing people to Ingeberg's and different places, talking about sandwiches on really, truly fresh bread, or Burkholm's Bakery, or any of these other places. We drive businesses. We drive people to the businesses. I'm being stopped all the time and asked where to eat, where to do this, where to do that. And I love the tourists. I really do. I enjoy this. This is a very unique, special thing. And by the way, Hans, the fire, we need to talk. The fire thing, that's not appropriate for this, but yes. Please, 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 use your wisdom. Think ahead. This is something that is very, very special, and it's being done right here. It's not done right in some other places, but this is a small, quiet community. Most of you people know Sal. Most of you have seen the trolley go by, like Dutch said. Yes, come ride with us once. Check it out. And correct me if my history is off, because I need to know. It's important to me to get it right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam. And a point I'd like to make is the horses drop in New York City because of the humidity. Out west here, when the temperature goes up, humidity goes down.
Yeah.
And out in the east, the temperature goes up, humidity goes up.
Most of the time.
Yes.
Most of the time, yes.
Yes, they're also
right. It's
charging.
Enough. Right. So it's an unfair comparison, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay,
East
well,
horses and East and West
yes.
Coast horses. No.
In Seattle, they have similar things, but it's because of abuse.
Mm.
We run the horses 6 hours, and that's it. And so, in other places where you're hiring a carriage out for $100, each hour you have that horse out is worth money. And the horses have to eat year round, whether we're taking them out and working them or not. And these ladies love to work. They really do.
Thank you, Sam. I have a lot of respect for Sal and his ability to handle the horses.
Yes.
And we've seen him over the years, and those horses are treated marvelously well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Julian Lopez. Followed by Anna Wittenbrock.
Hello, good evening, council members. I'm nervous. I wanted to bring a different perspective that I know of Lorena and her family. Last year, I was able to go to their house and photograph their horses and the family together. And the pastures that those horses live in are just amazing. Clean, the closeness between the family and the horses is like they were just family. Like if they can have them in the house like a dog would be, they would. In their living room, she also showed me a case of lots of trolley memorabilia, even from before they owned the trolley. Just, whether it be little porcelain figures, spoons, whatever it is, they're just fans of the trolley in Solvang. I also work at Solvang Knives, etc., and we're on First Street off of Copenhagen, the main shopping drive of the town. And we see the trolley go by, they talk about us, we see the people look, we see their eyes light up, ooh, a knife shop. And about 15 minutes later, we get a rush of people. We counted it, the trolley's over. The guys go, let's go check out the knife store. And we really see an increase in business that way. So I just wanted to tell you that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Diane Rittenbrock.
Hello, Mr. Richardson and council members. Again, I'm not a speaker either, but I would like to make a point that I am a local business owner, and the trolley is an asset to our business. And we are off the beaten path, so people don't know that we're there, and it brings people in. We also have the opportunity, because we're a small business off the beaten path, that we have a lot of interaction with visitors. And they ask us what to do, where to go. And so many people will ask, how do I get to go on the trolley? They want to take the trolley ride and stuff. They've heard about it internationally. It is Solvang. It's a piece of Solvang. It's a piece of Solvang history. It's an icon of Solvang. It also, if you've ever been on the tour, it tells you about Solvang, and it makes it a community, and you want to be a part of that community. When you're a visitor, you're just not coming to eat chocolate and smorgasbord and eat shops. It makes you a part of the community. And then people they come back because it's the sense of community. Too nervous to talk now. But I think the trolley is an asset, and without the trolley, it's not Solvang. You know, and we really need to help them thrive, which makes the community thrive. So.
Thank you. Sue?
Hello, Mr. Mayor, City Council, City Staff. You all know me, Sue from the Artistic Pony Studio, and I, like Diane, have a business on First Street, off the beaten path, as we always are, and we advertise with the trolley. And I'll tell you, the other morning, this is kind of a funny story, since they've all said everything I'm going to say, right? So I was opening up my shop, and I heard this whinnying down the street, and I'm a horse person. I went, hey, what's that whinnying, right? So I look down there, and here are the horses coming, and they're just prancing, because every morning they come past my stop before they go to work. And they're prancing, and they're whinnying, and they're so happy to go to work. And I kind of felt bad, because I didn't really feel that way when I was opening my shop. Didn't have that kind of energy, but I will tell you, these are very happy horses. So they're very happy, and the other thing I like about them is that when I'm working late, even though they only go 6 hours, they're working late too. So when I'm still open, they're still telling people about me. And that's great, because we are trying to have the town open longer in the evening so that people have something to do. I do get asked, just like Diane, how do I get on the trolley? We tell them all the time. People love to take the trolley. It does, when they're not running, it affects my business. 100%. I can tell you it is the best advertising dollars I spend in any advertising I do in the whole town the entire time I've been in business. And that's coming on 12 years. How did that happen? So, just want to say that. Everything's good. We would love it if you could find a place that's shady. You could build tall trees in front of Diane and my store, and we would love to have them there. Don't think that's going to happen, but if that could be possible, we would love to have them. So that's how much we love the trolley, and that they are part of Solvang. So hopefully we can find a spot where they can be more consistently there. They take great care of the horses. I like Hans, and most of you have seen when they do get in trouble, Sal not only takes care of the horses, but he also takes care of those customers that are on that trolley. They are safe when they get on and safe when they get off. This is a great business. They've put a lot of money into our town. Not only that, but they also give back to the chamber and anybody else who wants to ride. For the number of parades we have in this town, you'll know that trolley is always in that parade, and they do that without us paying a dime, right? So this is a company we want to keep going, and it helps them, and it does help us. And now I'll quit chewing your ear. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. I have no other speaker slips. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action then. Oh, come on up. Identify yourself.
My name is Ben Bramson. I'm the veterinarian for these horses.
Oh, good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I was not aware of the situation that is occurring here, and I'm just learning about it as I'm sitting here today. So this is all new news to me. But all I can say from where I stand is that the care that these horses receive is high quality. There's no stone unturned when these horses have any issues. I haven't seen the horses for a few weeks up until today. I actually went out to look at them before attending this meeting just so I could tell everybody, I saw these horses today. They are all fine. They're very healthy, very well cared for. The husbandry, everything is ideal. There's no room for improvement. And that's all I have to say.
Well, I'd like to ask you one question first.
Yes.
One of the options we have is to raise the temperature that they put in the shade to
Yes.
90 degrees. Are those animals capable or injured in any way by working at those temperatures?
With the access to fresh water on a regular basis and the time off intervals, 90 degrees is acceptable.
Yeah, very good.
I wouldn't go much higher, but 90 degrees is very acceptable.
Is there any other questions?
Yeah.
We're glad to have you because we know how well Sal takes care of his horses, but to
Yes.
hear your testimony, it just really adds the icing on the cake, and we appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
How's it going, Benny?
Hello, Hans.
Good. Good deal. I'm going to refer back to the letter in our that was in our packet. Do the horses really like to work?
It's a very good question, and you'll know if a horse does or does not like to work. Just like Sue was mentioning, they come prancing to work, and they're ready to go. And if a horse doesn't want to do something, it's going to be quite a spectacle. So yes, horses do like to work. They don't like to do certain things, and those that don't like to be a racehorse, they'll go on and be a jumper. Those that don't want to pull a carriage, they'll go on to be a saddle horse. So yeah, it's pretty obvious if a horse is enjoying what they do,
Okay.
for sure.
All right. Thanks.
You're very welcome.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much for being here. We
You're
appreciate
very
it.
welcome. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action. Who would like to start?
Okay, yeah, I hijacked the trolley. It was fun. You know, we visited this a few years ago, and we had a heck of a hard time finding a suitable place to move to. I think we ran through every option there was. We were in the parking lot. We were, so I don't know about a suitable alternate location. We've looked at them all. There haven't been any new trees that have grown since that search. Sue, you ought to water those a little bit more out there. Maybe you could get them. Solvang has competition. A lot of it, and it's getting more all the time. And what I encourage is something unique. What makes Solvang unique? You know, we have our architecture. We're Danish. You know, there's not a lot of other towns that are knocking us off on that. But there's a lot of businesses in town that are essentially the same thing you find up and down the coast. The trolley, I think, and I haven't gone out looking for other trolleys, but I think this is one of the unique things in Solvang. You know, they've been around for a bunch of years. I forget when they took the the engine out of that thing and turned it into a horse-drawn conveyance, but it was a bunch of years ago. So, I think I know that this is an important asset, not just because I get a hijack it every once in a while, but because of the uniqueness. It it shows up on pictures. When the Visitors Bureau did their presentation, how many times did the trolley show up? I don't know. I didn't count, but I saw it a number of times. So, for right now, I'm gonna leave it at this.
Mrs. Jameson?
Okay, the last time we discussed it, I was the one that recommended that the trolley park itself in the parking lot. And I kind of got some resistance to that about losing parking spaces, et cetera, et cetera. But when you look at what the trolley does for the town, those parking spaces don't mean anything. My only concern about where Sal is proposing is that it's going to affect 4 different lanes or 4 different parking areas. I would rather see you park as you're going straight in the entrance and park over to the left underneath those great big trees right by the Visitors Bureau, and then go out the alleyway and up First Street. I don't know if that is something that you would consider, but Ryan and I took a walk or drove by there today, and even in the morning there is shade there. And it's right there by the Visitors Bureau. Maybe we could get a special dispensation to have an off-site sign on the Visitors Bureau saying trolley that way. I'm just concerned about where you're proposing is going to have more of an impact than what I'm suggesting. I'm very supportive of your trolley. I understand it is the most photographed thing in the city of Solvang. So it does have some credibility there, and we don't want to lose the trolley. And those horses are so majestic, and if you look at those horseshoes they have on, they are enormous. I commend you for how you take care of your animals. I love those animals. My granddaughter thinks that they're the best horses in the world, and she's raised around quarter horses, so we're a little disappointed with her, but that's okay. That's all right. That's all right. But I would be very supportive of parking in the parking lot, but in the area that I think's better.
Ryan?
Well, I guess I think the council's put a lot of money out this year to support the small businesses. This is obviously a very integral part, very important aspect of tourism, and it's a small family-owned business here in Solvang, so I think that's really important to support. I'm open to the parking lot location behind the Solvang Park and putting a sign up. So other than that, I'm not sure if there's many other options. I located one potential one, but I'm sure you guys have already looked at it in the past, so the parking lot's probably the best spot. But the only other one I found was on the side, maybe Jim recognizes. I don't know if that's been discussed in the past, but there's big trees, they're sitting in the park. I just imagine people waiting for the trolley being able to just sit in the grass or in one of the sitting areas there. I don't know if that's the only conflict I see is maybe on Wednesdays with the farmer's market there.
He's suggesting on Mission in front of Solvang Park.
Yeah, it's a state highway. They would not allow that.
No, off Mission.
Oh, that's on First. That's on First Street.
On First Street.
See how well I know this town. Yeah, it's the first.
Take my tour, Jim.
Yeah, it's the first couple of parking places going south on First Street.
But the one thing I was noticing about that spot is that the cars are parking horizontally versus vertically, so it would be less parking spaces absorbed.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4 parking places, just four parking spots there.
I think his best, his best business traffic, though, would be off of Copenhagen.
Might be, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, just another possibility,
it,
but
yeah.
I do like the parking lot idea.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yeah, so I think the parking lot idea is an excellent idea. I think it gives a lot of opportunity to really solidify the business in the community in the town here. If they're open to having a permanent placement, I mean, I'll just go ahead and trump all you, and I say we give them 11 spaces. And when the city goes ahead and builds a nice covering that meets the decor of the city, and we just go ahead and really make it a part of the city. Give them the sign, everything, and we donate a place where people can hang out and sit or stand in a line of some kind. And
I just want to know where all of you were last year, or the year before, when I brought this up, and I looked like I was a pariah.
I like the overhead kind of, trees are kind of spotty and it still lets sun through, so I'd love to see some kind of permanent, really solidify it. This is what it is.
Yeah.
Or no, you're talking about parking lot too, sitting on which side of the parking lot?
I personally, I like the idea of having it on the left because they can just have a straight shot out. I don't know how much of an inconvenience it's going to be to maneuver around. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things
On the
we're
west side,
going to have to
side.
take into consideration on all this, if we're thinking about building something permanent, is Danish Days, because that takes over a lot of that. I could see it over against the King Frederick. That's
Right, yeah.
storage.
Think
That's
about
what I'm
how the
thinking.
horses are how they're going to maneuver that.
Yeah, that's what I haven't figured out yet.
Well, they could enter going up Park Place Alley against traffic and pulling into the parking lot that way without going through the parking lot.
I think his concept was to come through the parking lot, but then go out the handicap ramp that's right there at the crosswalk. But
Yeah.
we would have to change the curb. We're gonna be doing some work on that parking lot. This year you funded a redo of that whole parking lot. So I believe it was to go out and exit right there as opposed to going back and around by the visitor center and out.
Well, I was thinking of maneuvering through the parking lot while there's cars parked there to get to that location.
They maneuver through the streets with cars parked.
They're real horsemen, man. Hey, Sal, do you have an opinion on that?
Thank you again. For our experience working in the streets with the traffic and the people, the best place for us is next to the King Frederick, because the horses can come through the parking lot without no problem.
Okay.
But if we park just in the entrance, like John suggests, the spotty shed is great, but we want to have a lot of cars maneuver back and forth. And some of the people is not really careful when they back up. And I don't want to put on risk the people, the horses, and not somebody.
Well, you're still going to have that though over on the King Frederick side. There's still going to be people that are going to be parked along that side.
Yeah, but
We wouldn't be giving you the whole width.
no, use the 7 spots in the front. If we in that spot we can make a holes like in the streets in Copenhagen and the intersections you have for some steel posts.
Bollards? Yeah.
We can put on those, and then the trolley will be really safe in that spot. If the other side is just the entrance, that is the problem. It's when the people go inside the parking lot and they don't expect find horses in there, then we can get a surprise. But if we go and turn all the way around, the people, when drive more time inside of the parking lot, they are looking more careful.
So are you going to then go straight in the entrance?
Straight in the entrance.
And then all the way back to the alley? And then take a left?
Take left and turn, go to the spot, yeah.
So you'll be going the wrong way on the alley?
Just a little bit.
And the
Just a
wrong-
little
and-
bit.
And in the wrong, it'd be
I'll
going,
that's what I'm gonna tell the policeman next time. I only went a little bit.
Yeah.
and he'll be going the wrong way in the
There
parking
is
lot itself,
there is
too.
a circulation lane there, because cars do that same maneuver that he's talking about.
And there
They-
could
there
be
is
an
a small
exception
loop there.
sign made also, for that.
Well, that would be too tight.
And that would only be during the times of the
The time that
temperature
we
time.
need the shade, yeah.
You know what, I think that this would probably be, I see Matt wandering up, and I think, I think this would be good to study. Have Public Works take a look at this, see if it's feasible, logistically and every other way. And, yeah, you got nothing better to do, Matt. Redesign the parking lot.
Hey, Sal, let Matt come up
Okay.
and say something.
Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, good evening again. So our consultant is working on the drainage improvements, the flooding problem there along Mission in front of the King Frederick Hotel, as well as rehabilitating the parking lot. And along with that, there were already plans in the work to construct sort of a visitor welcome sign that provides like a photo op location on the south, the south side of the, right adjacent to where the trolley operates sometimes now along Copenhagen. So, and there's a few parking spaces right there. I think it's 4 or 5, but anyway, so we already have a consultant that's kind of in the works. We could have them look at a couple different options. One of them actually, if you did want to actually construct a covered structure, you could do that where the trolley operates right now along Copenhagen, have a covered structure that either cantilevers out, so there's no columns in the road, just on the curb. You can make it decorative, architecture to match, the town. And but anyway, so there's a couple different options or ideas that have already popped into my head, and we could have the consultant look at that and bring that back to you if you'd like. Or
That brings a thought. Would that cantilevered structure, would that shade the horses sufficiently where that could be a permanent spot?
Oh yeah, it could be designed to provide whatever amount of shade you need. I mean, if you can imagine the traffic signals, they're really heavy and they extend
right,
out like
yeah.
30 feet, so.
So under that condition, if we could do something like that, then we wouldn't need to look anywhere else. We could build something that he could use as a permanent location, permanent shading, 365.
Well, the idea is we'd bring back options for you.
Yeah.
And you can decide, of course, different options would have different costs, and different options would impact the loss of different number of parking spaces or not. And that way you got options to pick from, and you can decide how you want to proceed. But all the options I'm envisioning now from the conversation would be associated either with the south or west end of the parking lot 2 there, or utilizing the existing space along Copenhagen with some kind of shade structure.
That would be, would that provide adequate shading for the animals?
He just said yes.
Yeah.
He just said
Yeah,
yes
it
to
would.
that question.
That's another option, yeah.
So we can come back with 3 or 4 different layouts, and it wouldn't be anything fancy, because I know you don't want to spend a ton of money, but enough where you could get the idea and get some layouts and stuff. And
So what are we gonna do for them
So
now, though?
I think in the interim,
What's gonna happen?
interim, what I'm hearing is you're willing to give up the spots in Lot 2.
Yes.
So we can probably work with Sal on trying that corner, trying a couple spots in Lot 2. So if you're giving us direction to utilize Lot 2, we'll work with him on that in the interim until Matt can bring back some options for permanent.
Since this is an agenda item, do we want to consider the an 85-90 degree question?
If the vet says 90 degrees is no problem, I think that's a no-brainer. I mean, what do we know?
There's a hometown politician.
No, I mean, we got a vet sitting out here. He says 90, I'm good with it.
Well, we have horses at our house, and when it was 108 at our house the other day, they were not standing underneath the nice oak trees. They were standing out in the sun. So who knows what goes on between those ears of a horse?
Okay, so
Would 90 degrees potentially increase the vet bills?
Yeah, this is a businessman. So what we're discussing, provide staff with direction for the changes to the horse-drawn conveyance. So your suggestion of we'll put him into the east
Yeah,
side.
we'll work them on, we'll work with them in different areas in Lot 2, starting in that
Right,
western
and then
corner.
also, then we'll bring that back for a future agenda item, and do we want to discuss?
Well, a permanent fix we
right.
can bring back. But
And-
then, yeah, what I'm hearing, and you have the right to do that tonight, is to amend the license agreement to move it from 85 to.
So we can do that tonight. That's the question.
yeah.
Okay. Can I hear a motion?
I would prefer to leave it as it is, at 85.
I would actually prefer 85 as well.
Why exactly?
Sorry?
Because of the
Wondering why.
people that are also going to be out there waiting to take a ride on the trolley.
Are they incompetent to where they can't?
Probably some are.
Really?
Okay, so I'll make a motion based on incompetent people and bring it down to 85, even though the horses don't need it.
It's at 85.
Yeah, well, okay, leave it at 85.
We don't need a motion for that.
So we don't need to make a motion. So, and you guys have direction.
Staff has enough direction.
So we're good to go.
That's the end of that agenda item. Thank you all for being here. You know, we love that, that trolley. There's just no question about it, We want to keep it going. Item number 8.
Let's take it.
We're asked for a short break, okay? We'll be back at 25 after by that clock.
It's all right. Yeah. Yeah, take a break so everybody can, because I'll be such a.
What are they going to want?
Oh, you know. You get to experience the real deal here, the really important things for trauma.
Yeah, that was actually kind of fun.
Well, and actually, I'm sort of glad where everybody's taking a break because I'd be such a drag and
Anticlimax.
Yeah, completely, and this happens all the time in planning. Just so you know, I'm striking a couple of the conditions after consulting with Matt Vanderlyn, and we decided that this double yellow centerline stripe didn't make any sense, so that's coming out the conditions. The guest parking spaces seem to be a hangover from a previous plan because they actually have 4.
I thought it was the same plan.
Yeah. Yes. The only thing that didn't seem to that was mistyped slightly in the staff report had to do with the 10-to-1 versus appropriate tree ratio and size. And in your initial study, I want to refer back. This is the language I want in there, which is that there'll be some consulting about the ratio and not. Having outside consulting biologists or arborists to assess damage and recommend mitigation to the appropriate tree ratio and size. I like that better than 10-to-1 to me always seems
It's arbitrary.
arbitrary. And then what do you do with 10 trees? You don't always want 10. Are they on site? Are they not? And if you don't have a tree ordinance, it tells you exactly what to do then. It's sort of
residents are okay with?
Yeah, they are. The only issue I think they wanted was that he was a little reluctant about the chain link fencing versus the orange plastic fencing.
Oh, around the trees?
Yes, and I don't care much either. Although my city clerk, who was a previous associate planner, said, she was from Santa Barbara County. It needs to be chain link. It needs to be stick. It needs to be. And
there's no fence everywhere. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm not going to hang up the project over something like that. I don't think it's a big deal. That said, there will be certainly a certain usefulness in having a mitigation monitoring program because there's a lot of stuff that I've suddenly taken ownership of.
So the dirt that's out there now, what's up with that?
They're just raising the.
That's fill.
Yep,
for the rest.
it's fill for the project. Right. So they haven't started grading or anything.
Approvals and all that.
Yeah, they got approvals for that. So there's and council most of the council members have come to me and discussed what their concerns or questions. Welcome to Solvang. You probably spend a couple of hours here. Now, if you wish to give my staff report, I'll be happy to.
Not really.
I didn't think so. So.
Shoot from the hip, but I'll leave.
Yeah, well, I'll be shooting from the hip too. So you can get into the weeds pretty quick with this if you aren't careful. So I'm trying to take the big picture.
Happy and those guys are happy.
Yeah. I'm trying to take the big picture view of this, and I think we'll get to everything. And your initial study was so well done too. Not that anybody read it, but no offense. As many people read it as I'm sure they've ever read mine.
It was riveting, I know.
Riveting stuff.
So I'll be here.
Very good. Very good. I don't think so, but yeah, hopefully you enjoyed your drive down here.
Oh yeah.
Get to sample a little.
It wasn't as hot as I was expecting too, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah, I know it was really hot this weekend, wasn't it? Down here. It wasn't Fresno, but it's always hot in Fresno. So.
Are you still running back and forth?
Yeah, and actually I've.
Does that go on forever?
back from recess. On to item 8.
Item 8, request of Bella Vista SYV LLC to amend conditions of approval of track map 3070, parcel numbers 137540057 through 137540064, the cottages on Old Mission Drive.
Staff report.
Staff report. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Holly Owen, Planning and Economic Development Director for City of Solvang. We're here tonight to consider the request of Bella Vista SYV LLC to amend the conditions of approval of the track map that was referenced. This is a track map that was approved by Council in June 2006. It's been around a while. Some of you remember it. There were a number of state extensions to that map over the intervening years. There was an economic downturn over the intervening years, and there was also some projects that were proposed, but what did not actually come to pass. As the economic downturn diminished those opportunities, map was sold to Mr. Gary Blake of Bella Vista LLC in November 2016. For those of you who want a physical reference, it's located on Old Mission Drive in an area that is mostly surrounded by residential uses, but there's a shopping center to the east, and then there's also a State Route 246 to the south. There's a small city-owned xeriscape garden to the west. And Old Mission Drive itself is a pretty narrow 2-lane rural local road along the project frontage. The tentative map was approved in 2006, and then there were some amendments to those conditions of approval. You have what was your final conditions of approval in your packet for that map from July 27th, 2009. And the applicant is requesting changes to certain conditions of approval and mitigation measures in part to respond to the market conditions as they exist today. You have those recommended changes in your packet. It's requested a change to the final map also regarding internal circulation, creating the rear-loaded garages that orient the front facade of those dwellings to the Old Mission Drive side of the project. His goal is to create a little more pedestrian-friendly stretch along that Old Mission Drive area. The fire department has given comments for the project. Those are included in your conditions of approval. The initial study, M&D, was prepared by a secret consultant that was hired by the city. It was routed for 20 days. There was one comment letter that was received as a result of that. That was from the Air District, and those comments are included in the draft conditions of approval. So just to walk you through some of the 4 changes to the mitigation measures that the applicant is requesting and staff's analysis and recommendation for those. The first one was mitigation concerning aesthetics. In particular, designs being required to be of Danish or Northern European design. Now, as staff analyzed this issue and how it was interpreted in the past, it seemed to go back and forth depending on whether it was before Planning Commission or before Council. And over the years, there were two different determinations made over time. But at this time, the applicant is requesting that the architectural style be more in keeping with the surrounding neighborhood to fit that better. There will be views from the existing residences will be maintained, so there's not a lot of roof height that's being proposed. That is in your packet also to look at some of the proposed elevations. And the project site is located in an area where the Board of Architectural Review will be giving their requirements as to colors, massing, materials of the new residences, as well as landscaping. So staff, in summary, staff supports this change to the conditions of approval for this particular mitigation measure. The second mitigation measure that the applicant was requesting was to biological resources, in particular concerning the protection of the oak trees that are existing on site. I think we're all aware that we don't have at this point a tree protection ordinance. We do have tree protection guidelines. We also we took a look at what the applicant was proposing. They had hired a certified arborist and came to us with a oak tree evaluation and inventory and a tree protection plan. I believe you all have that full-size plan that was given to you in your packet last Friday. At this point, we've determined that with the rewording and the updating to reflect staff or other resources for accountability going forward to protect the trees, and that we have some conditions that go with this tree protection plan that is shown in your packet on page 148. That will set aside, that will clarify a process whereby some of the utility work that may be encroach close to that drip line of the oaks be handled in a way that there would be some supervision by an arborist and then some specific requirements to protect those trees. There is a slight change to the condition of approval that I'll get to later, just in terms of the wording to ensure that we're consistent with what is being proposed in the initial study. The third mitigation measure concerns hydrology and water quality. In the past, the philosophy was that there was to be an on-site detention basin, and that would suffice, or that would be part of the larger mitigation for retention of stormwater and runoff. I think we're all pretty aware that the stormwater management requirements have changed in recent years, and the applicant is proposing that we have dry wells or stormwater infiltration chambers as reviewed and approved by the city engineer. I know that the applicant has been in discussions with his engineer and also with our staff to create what will be the appropriate workable plan and going forward to manage runoff on stormwater and runoff on that property. The city engineers also added the requirement of a recorded private storm maintenance agreement which was not in the original conditions of approval. So that will guarantee that the property owners take that responsibility to maintain that and make sure that it's in working order for their use and their safety. Number 4 is that the applicant has requested a change to is the noise section of the mitigation. In the previous conditions of approval, there were 16 conditions that were required for various building requirements, various anything from attic vents to fire dampers to windows. And after analyzing this, after the initial study did some analysis of the findings, it was determined that current building code and Title 24 requirements will serve to mitigate those sound levels at levels equal to or better than the previous conditions of approval requirements. It will also be assumed that the interior noise will be read before a certificate of occupancy can be issued to make sure that interior noise meets the general plan noise element standard too. At this time, I would like to just address very briefly there's some changes to the recommended conditions of approval. Page 177, mitigation measure 121, that states that there should be a double yellow centerline stripe should be installed to the entirety of Old Mission Drive from Alamo Pintado to the project site. Upon discussion with the city engineer, we've determined that that is no longer required for this project, and so that will be struck with staff's recommendation. That will be struck from the conditions of approval. Project-specific conditions on the same page, 177. There was a requirement for one guest parking space shall be shown on the construction plans for each parcel. If you look at the submitted plans, there are actually there's 2 parking spaces in addition to the 2 required spaces for each single-family dwelling. So we feel that more than meets that particular need. And finally, I realized that there was a discrepancy between the staff report and the biological resources mitigation measure number 3 in 174. There was a phrase referencing a replacement for a 10-to-1 ratio when there's unanticipated damage to trees or sensitive habitats from construction activities. And if you reference the initial study, there is page 113. There's the cleaner language there that talks about instead of that 10-to-1 ratio, it talks about the mitigation shall include, but is not limited to, posting of performance security and the hiring of an outside consulting biologist or arborist to assess damage and recommend mitigation and the appropriate tree ratio and size. I think that jurisdictions have found that although it's common to require a 10-to-1 ratio when tree damage, unanticipated tree damage occurs, that is actually fairly impractical. It becomes a question as to where you put 10 trees suddenly. And do you put them on site? Do you put them in a park? So it would be easier and more effective, I think, in terms of a mitigation measure to analyze whatever specific damage is at the time and take a recommendation from an arborist as to the appropriate ratio and species that would replace whatever damage was done. So with that, that concludes my staff report at this time. I know the applicant is here to answer any questions. So was the CEQA consultant that assisted the city. The city council could continue action on this project, or they could refer back to staff for further review, or you could deny it. But at this point, staff recommends this project subject to the conditions that have been outlined and presented to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Would the applicant come forward, please?
Brian, you want to come up with me? Yes, I'm Gary Blake, and this is Brian Nelson. We're both partners in this. Brian's the architect. I do some of the developing. Just want to thank you, Mayor Richardson, members, council members, and neighbors for giving us the opportunity to talk about the project and the plans that we have for creating, we think, best possible development of the Old Mission site. Over the last several months since we've acquired it, we've worked closely with the city staff, Holly and Matt and Bridget and Brenda and team to really come together. Actually, I met with Brad a few times even as well to work on this, to come to a point where we were all in agreement on what looked to be the best possible solution for, I'll say, a difficult property that's been problematic over the years, as evidenced by the history that Holly outlined. So, just to say, we are in complete agreement with the staff report, except for one very minor thing, which is there's a condition that says we should have chain link fencing for the oak tree protection, and our arborist actually says that we should recommend using the kind of industry standard bright orange plastic fencing, which is less expensive and works just as well. Other than that, we did acquire the property last year, November of 2016. One thing that wasn't mentioned along with that is we also signed concurrently a development agreement with the city that calls for us to get all of the public improvements in this year, which we're working hard to do. So that would be the widening of Old Mission, and of course sewer, water, and sidewalk, and all of that, which are part of both original conditions and new conditions. We really took a hard look at this whole neighborhood compatibility and aesthetics early on, and thought that Northern European architecture was not consistent with neighborhood compatibility, nor what the market desired, or actually the neighbors as well. If you look at the site, which is right behind where the new mercantile project is, it's really an outlier from the kind of the village area, and that architecture doesn't contribute anything to that area or that site, because we're surrounded by either kind of that urban contemporary look of the mercantile project. There's an approved project across the street that's Spanish, and then if you go up to 46, of course, you come to the Mission and to the Vet Hall and all that, and it's really not until you get to Alisal that you hit really what I'd call the village and the Northern European architecture. So, for better or worse, we've really felt that the idea of this traditional eclectic architecture that's compatible with the neighborhood and surrounding uses makes the most sense. To that end, we have kept in close touch with that whole neighborhood. We had a neighborhood meeting at the Vet Hall some months ago. We presented our design concepts, took questions, and incorporated some of their comments into our site plan. And I think we've had very good response from them, probably evidenced by the fact that there aren't a lot of our neighbors here tonight in opposition. And in addition to that, we've kept in touch with them via a Facebook group that the neighborhood has. So for example, there you can see there's a stockpile of dirt on the site right now. And each time we've moved dirt onto there, we've notified the neighbors, we've let them know what the hours will be, where we'll be moving dirt, and really tried to work hard with them to let them know that we're good neighbors. So with that, we've got aesthetics, we've got site-sensitive design, and the same thing when the original conditions called for not only widening the street, but they had shared driveways, and we discovered as we dove into what was approved that there were 16% grades on those driveways, which we actually felt created a public safety problem, because either if somebody's coming up to the sidewalk, they couldn't see a little kid on a bicycle, or same thing going down, it's hard to see what the heck is in front of you over the nose of your car. So we looked at that and actually came up with the idea of doing a driveway, which Brian will walk through. That's a private drive that comes down the back, which has also the benefits of creating a nicer streetscape where you're really looking at the front of the houses as you walk along the street and not the garages. Holly talked about the oak tree protection plan, and we're in agreement on that. We talked about guest parking, and then actually along the whole way, just to know, we not only did we work with city planning, we worked with engineering, we worked with the fire department, and actually I went out and met with them there at their site, and they came to a meeting here to talk about it. Drove up to Santa Maria and met with Waste Management to talk with them about the alley, and took all their comments and put it together, and it's reflected in the conditions that the fire department put together. So essentially we think what we've done is some pretty neat things. We actually reduced the street traffic on Old Mission by having this private drive, so fewer cars go down the street, which is really, if you go out there during the day, it's a pretty pedestrian-friendly place. People are walking out in the middle of the street, and kids are there on bicycles, and they're walking into town or walking down to New Frontiers or whatever. We've actually also, through this, created more on-street parking that would have existed under the old conditions, because when you take the shared driveways away, you create more spaces along the street. We also, another thing that came up is the old plan actually called for removing all the existing street trees that were there, and there's some pretty old trees that are nice, actually, and the new plan actually saves several of those and then adds new trees as well. So, and we've also, through our design, reduced the amount of import required for grading, and I think we've come up with a pretty nifty solution to stormwater drainage, working with Matt, who actually suggested the infiltrators as a solution that we should look at. So I think it's been a nice collaboration, and we like what we've done. We hope you do. And Brian's going to walk you through a little bit of it so you can get behind our thinking and kind of see what the approach to it.
Two comments on Gary's presentation. The infiltrators, do you know what that is? It's a dome. It's like a half a pipe with holes in it, and it's kind of like a septic system, and it's going to go under the private road, the alley going down the back, so you won't even know it's there. It's under the road, so all the stormwater, roof, hardscape goes into the storm drain system, goes into the infiltrators, replenishes the groundwater, and if there's any more than it can handle, it flows down the little creek that's there. So that's what the infiltrator is about. The second thing is, as far as the streetscape, that is a pedestrian street. Very few cars. There's only 5 houses down the street, the whole street. And the shared driveway was really going to create, with the steepness and all that, it was really going to create a safety issue. So by having one entrance and exit down right next to the Verizon Frontier building, we can control it a lot better. And people will be going slow, and everybody will know that that's where the one driveway is instead of having 4 driveways down the street. So as far as the architecture goes, we want the eclectic architecture. We have the neighbors across the street, the photographs there, and you can see none of the houses are the same architecture. Everyone's a different type of architecture, and that's what we're going to create as a streetscape. So again, people are walking along that area. They aren't looking at garage doors, and they aren't looking at driveways. They're looking at fronts of houses, kind of like a country lane. So that was another reason we went to the eclectic architecture. You can see what's going in across 246, the proposal for the lot that's for sale in that commercial area is a different type of architecture. Everything from the old Mission to this site is a different type of architecture. It's just eclectic. On your handouts, you can see the little line that goes above the roof.
Yeah, right.
Each case. That's the Danish-style architecture roof area. And I can tell you the roof heights are dramatically different. If you want to know, I have them all with me. But you know, you can just see how much less roof you're going to see. And therefore, as you're walking on the street or the neighbors up above, they aren't going to be seeing roofs. They're going to be seeing the oak trees behind it. So that was another important aesthetic that we decided to incorporate. I think that's all I need to say. If you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer.
Thank you for explaining those dotted lines.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, Gary.
I've just got one more thing, and that's, we actually took a look at the City of Solvang housing needs as part of this and the housing element. And there were a few points in there that we thought they were important, one of which was an objective of improved neighborhoods, provided a diversity of housing, and facilitate development of housing types and affordability levels. And I wanted to speak to those just a second. As you know, the real estate market is severely constrained here. There's hardly any new construction. There are only 3 houses left at Skid Mesa, and then there's no more new housing that's going to be coming up. Particularly, there's a need for, I'll call them attractively priced homes. I'm hesitant to call them affordable homes because that's got its own government definition. And people are looking for moderately sized new homes as well. And these homes are way different than what was originally conceived or approved in the prior. They were actually going to build custom homes that were, you know, closer to 3,000 square feet. We're looking at homes that are 1,600, 1,800 square feet. So modest size, designed to hopefully fill a need for people who are either downsizing or hopefully being able to move into a new home here and not being priced out of the market. So, and Holly spoke to the noise issue, so we think we've attracted that. I will say, you probably would know this, but I'm also involved on the project down in Buellton along the highway there, by Zaka Creek Restaurant, where noise is a much bigger issue. And it turned out we were able to resolve that very easily just with insulation and an Anderson window that's called an NTC. That's a noise transmission glass that just cuts it out. So if you walk into one of those houses, you don't hear it, and close the door, you don't hear a thing. So that's the type of glass we'll be using on the backside of these to make sure that when you're inside the house, you're
Is that 1/8 1/8 window? That's mentioned in here?
Yeah, it's
double glazed.
It's a double glazed, but it's got a special coating on it, basically, that cuts the noise. So anyway, with that, just thank you for your time, and we appreciate that.
Hang right there because we'll probably have some questions for you.
Okay.
We also want to thank staff. They have really worked with us and given suggestions, like we talked about the infiltrators. that was a great suggestion, because there was little ponds on the back of all properties earlier, and that just didn't make sense to us, and that was a suggestion. And so we took it and ran with it, so
Is that the feed that goes into the 24-inch pipe?
Yes, it eventually goes down to the 24-inch pipe and underneath 246.
Who'd like to start with comments or questions? Ryan?
Well, I'd like to start with a compliment. I've heard from several neighbors or property owners around here that you've been working with them and having good communication. So I think that definitely helps with getting a project off the ground.
Thank you.
Wow. Did I am the only one who did my homework? No, I have questions. Okay. Slide in and then slide.
Yeah, and then slam us, right?
Catch them off guard. Huh?
Yeah. Good job. I just have a couple of questions about the private alleyway or driveway and the infiltrators, and how, I know they're CC&Rs, but will there also be a homeowners association?
The answer is yes, because typically when you do something like a private drive in these infiltrators, you design it in such a way that there's what's called a reserve study. You're probably aware of those, where the engineers calculate the amount of money that needs to be collected to make sure that the driveway, the alley is maintained, and the infiltrators are maintained, and that's part of what goes into that.
Okay, and this is going to be a part of all the title reports, correct?
Yes,
So that all
absolutely.
owners beware that this is
Absolutely,
part of it.
yes.
Okay. You talked about waste management. Now, are they going to be willing to come down this private drive to pick up?
That's what they've said.
Good, good. Because I would just see them struggling to get there.
We looked at that earlier and said, there was a question I asked. I started looking at this and said, we don't want people schlepping their cans, up to the street.
Yeah.
So that's why we went to Santa Maria.
And then there's kind of like a bulb out here.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Matt's may be better to tell you about this here than I, because that actually was something that came with the original approval. And my understanding is that bulb is because when you get down to the end of Old Mission, there's not enough room for a turnaround for a fire truck.
So the radius isn't big enough?
Right.
Okay. So what is the size of the bulb out then?
I believe it's a 40-foot radius.
It is a 40-foot radius?
Is that right?
Right here.
We'll let Matt speak.
Sure. Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I believe it was a 40 or 44-foot radius.
Okay, as long as it's 40, that's all I want.
Yeah, and that was a requirement of the fire department
department,
to be able
right.
to turn around the fire truck at the end.
Okay, thank you. And then the elevation, how much grading are we doing? How much infill are we gonna have? Where are we gonna get the dirt?
It's a cut and fill, so we're going to be cutting on the roadside, Old Mission side, and then filling the back. We don't know exactly how many yards it is yet. The engineers are working on it. So it's a cut and fill balance. The road itself, you see all the dirt out there. The road itself takes almost 2,000 yards just to build the road. And we have about 4,000 stored out there right now. So half of that's going to the road, and the other half's going to balance out and do our alley around the back.
Okay, and then I noticed that you have stairs going down from the roadway. Is
Yes.
that how I'm reading? Okay. I just want to make sure I'm reading it correctly.
So to answer your question, where's the dirt coming from that you asked? Actually,
Well, I know where some of it came from,
yeah,
so where's the rest
all
of it coming?
4,000 yards so far have come from the Mercantile project,
Right.
which makes it very convenient.
Right.
We're doing a cost share with them. They say they've got potentially another couple of thousand, but we don't know if we need that much yet.
Okay.
So as we work with our engineers and with them, we'll kind of balance that out.
Okay. Are you going to have no parking signs down in that alleyway?
Yes, that's
Okay.
one of the conditions.
On both sides?
And
Both
the
east and-
north side of Old Mission.
Right,
Yes,
right.
yes.
Right, so there'll only be parking on the side where the houses are located.
Except on the 4th of July. No, just everybody knows what that is.
Okay, there's a lot to this project that's going to require a lot of staff time, and I'm talking with Holly, I guess the city does not have what we have in the county, which are compliance officers or compliance planners. So I just want to make sure that nothing falls through that has to be looked at and approved and taken care of and signed off on.
In previous cities that I've worked in, we have a mitigation monitoring program. It's usually a big, almost like a spreadsheet where there's an outline of time, who's responsible, and how many times you need to participate in that supervisory action. So there's an accountability there. You know, we have all these conditions, and there's differing timelines and differing. Sometimes it'll be Matt, sometimes it'll be me, sometimes it might be an arborist. But my job is to create that that plan going forward. And as I said, it hasn't been a tradition in Solvang, although perhaps Skip Mesa had one. I'm not sure. But I know that this project would benefit from that. So.
Let's see what else. Oh, the retaining wall. Tell me about the retaining wall.
It's a short retaining wall. It starts on the western end. It's only about 2 feet high on lot 1. And lot 2 it gets to about 3 feet high. Lot 3 it's 4 or 4.5 feet. And then it diminishes down to 1 foot going down the rest of the. So it cannot be seen from the road because you're looking down upon the wall, and the wall is, you know, at the bottom of the slope.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, thank you. Why don't we let somebody else ask some questions, and I'll...
I wanted to know, was there a more detailed, like preliminary tree plan, or I'm kind of looking at this, but I don't see any trees in front of the houses, or?
Well, let me point out the existing ones we're going to keep, and then we're filling in with oak trees and other. There's one right here that's in the easterly lot, and that's a pepper tree, I think. Yeah.
And that's existing?
That's existing, and we have done the bowl around the sidewalk around those trees to protect them so that they can stay and not be harmed. So, and it's only filling a couple inches. Okay. All right. Yeah. Got it. Yeah. So there's one right there, then there's one right there, and that is a pepper, I believe. And then this one and the one at the end. They were all slated to be taken out, but they're mature trees. The arborist looked at them. He said if you trim them up, they're really going to do well. They are older, but because of that, it gives a great treescape, I mean a streetscape from the, you know, you don't just have a little 24-inch box with a stick next to it when you start out, and that's why we want to keep them. They were all slated to be taken down.
And what's the diameter of the bulb around them? Is it large enough to make sure that those trees won't inadvertently die later?
Well, then there's a 5-foot sidewalk, and then it's dirt. So there's plenty of place for the water to absorb and all that.
So what about new trees?
We're going to put a landscape plan to the Board of Architecture review. And so we'll have a preliminary landscape plan when we go to the Board of Architecture review. It calls for...
I think it's at least three.
At least 3.
24-inch boxes.
Okay.
So.
And is there anything to, like I noticed there's a gap from 246 that was in the staff report where you can clearly see into the...
Oh, there and there?
Right.
Yeah. You can see by the topo map, we only own to where the creek flows. Actually, it's a little bit north of where the creek flows. So we can plant right on the edge of our property, but it won't fill the slope. That's Caltrans. So we can't do anything about Caltrans's property. Although those trees are really filling in. I mean, that gap, I think, is getting smaller every decade. That's going to be how long it takes new trees to grow.
Well,
you know.
But part of your answer is there is down in this little corner here, we plan to do something. There'll be something to do some screening. We've also talked with Matt.
Is that by the telephone company? Is that what you're talking about?
By Verizon. We've also talked to Matt about an idea of them having a small easement so they can, I think, put a pole there to be able to deal with Caltrans about their issues about the banners that go across the highway. So that's just a topic of discussion, but we're open to that as well.
And will there be any like thinning of the? I notice there's like a lot of volunteer trees down there. Like, do we have to thin out some of the smaller ones to ensure the viability of the more mature oak trees there? Or?
I believe we will. We actually started soon after we acquired the property. We went in and did a pretty good pruning and thinning and really cleaning, because there was a lot of debris down there, and it was just a mess.
Tires
and all kinds
of stuff.
Nope, won't go there. But anyway, yes, the answer is we'll be, because that really becomes a benefit to the entire neighborhood, actually. So that, yes, we will be spending some time down there. And then ensures, and thinning ensures the viability of the larger trees as well. So.
Are we talking about all the oak trees? Are we talking about the stand of oaks?
Yeah.
The
Yes.
growth,
Okay.
the thicket. 70 years ago, there wasn't a tree
Tree
there.
there.
That's right.
Yeah.
1955. When was 246 straightened out and goes up the hill?
You know, I always remember that. You know, the straight shot. But you used to have access just right past Pine to go down that way.
Right.
Yeah. So
That was,
up Old
but
Hill.
you know, I remember being up at Sorensen's place looking out, and there were no trees there. There was you know, there was an oak tree up kind of on the corner,
Right.
up there where Old Mission would plug into Mission Drive. But you know, I think they're a great buffer for your project, so they don't have to hear the highway noise. But as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing sacred about them.
But they aren't yours, are they?
Nope.
Those
They're all-
trees
Well,
aren't yours?
some of them are and some of them aren't, because the property line actually goes
Okay.
right down the middle of that oak grove.
Well, it doesn't go down the middle.
But,
The-
yeah, that's
it-
true.
It's only, most of the trunks are on Caltrans.
Yeah.
There's a few on our property. But if you go down there and look, the creek is actually, or the water path is actually about 8 feet on Caltrans property. So if you go and look, everything north of 8 feet is gonna be on our property.
Mhm.
And we thinned out the trees and we chipped everything and left it all there to be mulch, and we had an arborist come in and survey it and then do the tree trimming.
I think, you know, one of my recommendations would be is to definitely do something down there at the that open area by the off the phone company.
Yeah.
Just to make sure people don't hop over whatever there is and go wander around the bottom end of the development there.
Right.
And I think we will. And as you might remember some time ago, I think you all talked about it. There was initially, before we got to hear the discussion about some connectivity issues and putting a path through there, which I think you all agreed was not the best solution. So
No.
came back to this.
My only concern is the width, and I know the fire department's signed off on it, the width of the driveway, basically. You know, you've got that 16-foot bump out right as you come down, but then the rest of it is 12 foot. Is that
Well,
correct?
it's 12 plus 2-foot shoulder and 2-foot shoulder. So it's actually 16 drivable.
So you've got 16 drivable. Okay.
16 drivable.
Okay. Then I'm okay with it if you got 16 drivable.
And if you notice here, there's one that's indicated as gravel, but the fire department wants us to pave that. So there's actually a pullout here.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because that was my concern, that if it was only a 12-foot, that would I could see gridlock.
Yeah.
At the wrong
Well,
time of the
you
day.
gotta remember, there's also every driveway.
Yeah, every driveway has it, but
If they meet somebody coming the other way that has big mirrors, they can pull in and,
as long as nobody's
Practical
as
sense.
long as nobody's parked in it at that time.
That's true.
That's why we made 20 feet between the garage door and the edge of the road, every single house, so that if a car is parked there, people can still get by.
Still get by,
If we did
okay.
16 feet, you know what would happen.
Yeah.
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 We did 20 feet.
Okay.
I have a few concerns. Regarding those lanes for the fire truck, I can see the ladder truck working off of 246 or off Old Mission rather than even going behind the houses, you know. 'Cause it's-
Exactly.
That's what they said, just in case of an emergency, we're gonna have addresses on both sides, they requested that. But they're more concerned about an ambulance going down there than a fire truck, because if they get back in that area, you know, they can't effectively fight a fire that's gonna jump from house to house. They can do that from the street, that's where the fire hydrants are, on the street. So why go down that private alley except for an ambulance trying to get somebody out of a house or something like that, out of a backyard barbecue?
I had a couple of my skeptical mind. There's a couple of pages of conditions that are lined out and substituted by 4 words. And I kind of look at that as thinking, well, what are we trying to get around, you know? And those are the conditions for this noise and also for the, I guess it was the trees too, but I saw the tree plan and that seems to be okay. But, you know, I walked that along the tree line yesterday, listening to the noise from the highway. And in your noise contours, you show a 10 dB drop from the highway just past the trees. That's a 50% drop in noise, according to what's going on here. When I walked it, I didn't hear any change in noise levels. And your noise people are saying that the trees have a small effect on noise attenuation. They have really a 0 effect on noise attenuation. And because of that, I'm thinking of people how annoying that road noise is going to be after a while. And I'm wondering that by going to the building code and Title 24, if that's sufficient insulation from noise, that it's better than the plan originally was. Can you answer that?
That's why I spoke to that, and that's actually why I spoke to the experience over in Buellton, because we used a blown-in insulation that's a new technology that's different than the fiberglass bats.
Yeah.
And between that and the glass, it literally, if you were to walk into that house, you don't hear that. Hear any noise.
The idea of the noise levels too, I don't think anybody wants to have a patio in the back by the garages because of the noise levels from the highway.
Well, I'll speak to it from a different perspective. I love it here because we're spoiled, but most of the world doesn't live in conditions like this. In fact, we just had some guests who were from down by Oceanside, who live right next to I-5.
Oh, yeah, right.
And they've got a barbecue there, and they've got all of that stuff. And basically, you know, we asked them about it. And they said, you know, that's just the way it is, and you get used to it.
Right, yeah. Well, you know, the condition, I've forgotten where it is now, where you said you'd replace, if the window's closed, you'd do air conditioning and other mechanical systems. I'd like to see you delete the other mechanical systems portion of it and require air conditioning in those buildings just for the reason, or there's 2 reasons. One is noise pollution from the highway and also pollutants, diesel particulate and tire and dust from off that highway. With windows open, that's going to permeate the building, you know. And with a fan system, I can see some disadvantages. What with an air conditioning system, windows closed, you're going to be quiet and cool and have good air.
We are air conditioning all of them.
So we don't have a problem.
Simple solution.
Thank you. That's just what I wanted to hear.
And we don't have a problem, and I think Alan could speak to that also in terms of, you know, experiences we have where people now, you know, the old Valley air conditioning was you open your window at night.
Right, that's Texas air.
You know, but now what we're finding is everybody wants air conditioning.
Right, I'm glad to hear that. That alleviates a lot of my concern. And also the window sizing for sound insulation, that's adequate. It said it was adequate here by the guy that did the sound studies. The 3/8, 1/8 window. Is that what you installed in Buellton?
I'm not the contractor, so honestly, I don't know the answer to that. I just know we went straight to Anderson and said, here's the problem, fix it for us. And they did.
They did.
Well, Title 24 addresses that, and you can only have so many decibels, and Title 24 isn't just energy anymore, it's also sound and
I got lost in Title 24. That's why I was suspicious of of the original conditions, you know? So my question was, is Title 24 conditions superior to the ones we had, or is it less superior? Or
Well, let's put it this way. Title 24 has gone through 3 iterations since the conditions were approved. And you know they're not getting any more lax. So they're going to be more stringent. So we have assurance, so to speak, that it's going to be more restrictive than it was lenient. So that's old technology as it was approved in all those, that was old. It's 7 years, 8, 9 years old.
Are there folks that are Title 24 specialists?
Absolutely.
That can read and understand that stuff?
There are. Actually, when you submit a set of plans, you have to also go to the Title 24 specialist, and they put out a report that's about like that, about how that set of plans meets those requirements.
Isn't gov?
And it used to be just energy loss, you know.
Oh, that government's wonderful. Let me check a couple of other notes.
Yeah,
here.
it's fun building light fixtures, Jim, because we get to deal with it too.
Could deal with it also? Oh, yeah, the trees, yeah, that's okay. That can, oh, yeah, the 10 to 1 replacement thing. I can understand the problem with there's not enough room to replace 10 trees if you have a damaged one. And the idea that I think in the past that they, like Holly said, spread them out around someplace to make up for the loss. What kind of thoughts have you got in those lines if you damage the tree? If you have to lose one, take one out? You can't, you say you put back a 24-inch box with a stick out of it, that's not gonna replace a nice, huge tree.
Well, that's what they counted on with the 10 trees. You know, over just across the river on 154, you see a whole grove of oak trees planted. That was a 10 to 1 because of 154 widening.
Okay.
And so that was the forest they planted. And, who's going to use it? Who's going to dig them up now that they're 8 feet high? Who's going to go out there? And so it just became, in Santa Barbara, you could replace them in a park someplace. Well, that didn't help your project any.
No.
It said it just didn't work. So that's why they have gone away from that and gone to an arborist and said, get an independent arborist to come out, assess the damage. Is it going to kill the tree or just maybe, and they have all the rules that they have to go by. So
that answers that one. Thank you. Oh, mitigation number 10. I have to find, this, it's here to 6. Why did I put a question mark by that?
40-foot radius per city of Solvang, standard detail 404, as modified but with a meandering sidewalk approved by the city engineer. All dead-end roads shall have a turnaround.
Let me find where I had that note, because that doesn't sound like what I was thinking of.
All right.
Oh, yeah, this was that mitigation number 9, I'm sorry. That was the windows. I don't know why I had 10 here. Some of these, their numbers are, around this whole packet are spread and scrambled and renumbered in various places, and it's confusing to me, but. And then I agree with striking mitigation 12. There's absolutely no reason to have a double line on a residential street like that. That's, I think that was because of the original project that was being put on that property was an old folks home. It was going to have trucks driving up and down it at one time. That was in 2000. Because I was on the planning commission for when that issue came up. Was it? Now you've taken care of my concerns. Thank you, guys. Oh, and I want to mention something too, is in my discussions with staff, they praised you guys highly, just so you know. Any other comments? Okay, with that, we'll go to the public for public comment. Alan Jones.
Thank you, Mayor Richardson, City Council members, and staff. I'm Alan Jones, and part of full disclosure is I helped them buy this property and helped the seller also sell it. So it was, and if I live long enough to where it will actually come on the market and sell, I hope to sell these houses. So, but if not, I still think it's a superior plan. And this has been a problem property. The location is difficult. You can see all the mitigation issues and things, and the changes that they've made to this are superior. They improve this. It's probably the best you're going to get on this property, and I would recommend that you approve it the way it is without any changes. They've got everybody on board. The neighbors are on board. And to load up more regulations or more things and delays just causes it to be more unaffordable for people. This is trying to be an affordable single-family home neighborhood, and you're going to get a whole new street out of it. It's going to be better for pedestrians. It's going to connect the circulation from the village area down to the commercial zone down by Nielsen's Market. So there's a lot of win-wins all the way around, and I think tonight you get a chance to approve this and let them go on their way. All the things about noise, trees, aesthetics, those are all selling features that they're going to do anyway. I mean, if you're going to build by a noisy highway, you're going to make the house as quiet as you can be. So all those things are going to be taken care of, I think, just by the market. And so just let them run with it and do the best that they can. They're great guys to work with, and I think staff likes them, and they're probably the best people that you've got going forward on this, and I really recommend you approving it tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Seeing, do you have a speaker slip on this one? Oh, it's stuck back here. There it is. Fred Koval.
Fred's good.
I'm surprised.
I'm not surprised.
Did I say that? Did I say that?
Yeah, Mayor and City Council members. Yeah, I had two issues. One had to do with mitigation measure number 7, hydrology, water quality, and there is that 24-foot pipe. And yeah, you can say we're adding to the load with these 7 houses, and you have to recognize that you have the storm drain now coming off of all of the homes, between the homes on the north side of the road, and now you're adding to the loading a little bit, and plus whatever rain that falls on the street, and it's all heading in that direction. And the question is, I don't think I can find a study that says, hey, this additional loading will be mitigated properly by these 3 possibilities: infiltration chambers under this road, this new road. I have no feel for the size and the adequacy and what's going to run off into that 24-inch pipe that has been deleted. It's not even recognized that it's even there, okay? So probably it's been more than mitigated, but it's just not there for me as an engineer to understand what that is, what that mitigation will be. I just think it lacks. My biggest issue is noise. I was out there this morning during the prime traffic, and I have an old analog sound, DBA, and I can set it up for the C, the T requirement and the F requirement, which is slow. And but then I got this great old cell phone, and I picked up 6 apps. All have to do with sound, and I evaluated which ones, and there's actually 2, and actually only one that really does a good job, which again, you can do the F and T ratings, set it up for a C and for slow. And so I sat out there for about an hour this morning, and I set up a recorder, and I also set up this to watch it for that period of time. And I would say that it wasn't scientific because I hadn't done this for a while until I got used to how these apps work. And I found out that it was a 20-second, it's called a LEQ period of 20 seconds. and I did record, and I did watch it. And it was towards the end where I was getting tired, and I realized that, well, maybe if I did, instead of because the traffic is random, that if I watched it for 20 seconds, and then I waited 20 seconds, and then watched it for 20 seconds again, it would take the human inaccuracy out of this. What I did see is, and there's a number in here that says for exterior, your LDN and your CNEL level is supposed to be 60 dBs or less. Again, it was just my first time, but I saw probably about half the time was above the 60 level and half the time it was below, depending if it was cars or pickups or semis or people that were hauling heavy pickup trucks that were hauling trailers with something on them. They seemed to be in the 70 range and above. I had a few that were in the 80 range. Okay, so, but what I take umbrage with is the fact that below here, staff recommendations, the traffic's moving slowly. It is not. As a matter of fact, it's a 40 mile, and then there's an indicator going westbound that it's going to be a 25. And then when you get to the 25 sign, which is halfway up this property, you can't see the sign. But nobody's slowing down anyway. Now, if you go eastbound, it's 25, and then halfway down, it's a 40 before you hit the light at Alamo Potato. And people are not slowing. But people, 40, forget it. They're in both directions. They're all doing over 40. I've traveled that too often to understand that. The trees, it takes 35 feet of high-density bushes to have any sound attenuation, and there is none going on, believe me. And then multipath, if I may, Mayor. Multipath. The multipath is off the homes on the north side and off the new homes that are going to be in there. There's going to be a lot of amplification. Nodes and antinodes are going to occur, okay? And then you come through all of this, the height means nothing. And as a matter of fact, the height's on the backside, and the backside of the homes are doing the amplification. So there's going to be, when the homes go in, there's going to be a higher CNL level. And again, I understand L values, and I understand the 10 L value, and I understand the L ESQ values that are used to average out what noise is. And I take umbrage to the statement that says, oh, they got used to it on Highway 5 in Oceanside. No, they didn't. Heck, I was involved in New York City when I lived there. I couldn't take it. So I just think that something has to be done to mitigate the noise and the pollution from the highway. And the only mitigation is a wall like they did in Lompoc. Excuse me, not Lompoc, but in Buellton. Yeah, and that doesn't work. So I heard it here. It had to be right.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you.
Those were some of my observations also, that the study said for a 25-mile-an-hour zone, it ain't 25 miles an hour. And the 25-mile-an-hour zone doesn't start till 2/3 of the way past the property, and it's still going 35 in front of the vets hall. So, so those numbers, I agree with him, are questionable. However, and I know I read the rules about 60 dB and lower and all that. You have to have 45 in the house. You're going to tell us you're going to do 45 in the house. Yes. Yeah. And it's going to be measured 45 prior to occupancy, so you'll know. And what happens if you're outside the range? What do you do in that case?
We got some problems.
So you're going to plan for that then, I imagine. Yeah, right. Okay. I have no.
Believe me, we'll build beyond what it's recommended,
Yeah,
so that it doesn't happen.
I expect that, I do. I have no other speaker slips. Anyone else to wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action. Who'd like to start? Neil.
I'll make the motion that we allow this project to happen. I mean, this should have been a consent agenda item.
Well, before we do a motion, I'd like to have a discussion first. So,
I'm proud of you guys for sticking through it and getting this done and doing what needs to be done. We're doing your best to mitigate the issues and as far as all of them go. And I think we need to not take into consideration the speed of the cars for people that are breaking the law, and we have to write the rules for what the law is. So rather than supporting people speeding and adjusting to that, it's irrelevant to go out there and take decibels at people speeding. So that's all.
Ryan.
Difficult project, gotta relax on a few things. My biggest thing was the noise. I went down there myself, and certainly not gonna be an outside living area, I guess, in my standards, but what can you do? I would like to hear a little more from maybe Matt. There was some, my biggest concerns with the project is drainage and how these homes aren't gonna end up having water problems, mold. Just being down in that lowest point there.
Sure, well, there's a couple things. One thing, the city's stormwater management ordinance requires that the post-developed condition can't exceed the pre-developed condition. So the project is being conditioned to accept the drainage from the north side of the road and manage that. So with the widening of the road, they're going to be putting in curb and gutter and a new drainage catch basin inlet. And the road's going to be designed to drain all down to that new catch basin. So the water coming across the road will be caught at the curb, drained down to the catch basin. That'll go in a pipe that'll be routed from Old Mission back towards down towards Highway 246 Mission Drive. And then the natural swale that's down there will convey the water to the culvert that goes under the highway. So the infiltration chambers that they mentioned, basically they have to design those to capture and infiltrate any of the additional runoff that's now generated from the impervious area of the driveways, the road, the roofing, and all that. So now you've added this impervious area that will increase the runoff, but that has to be captured in those infiltration basins. And as Brian or Gary mentioned, they'll be designed so that on a really large storm, where the flows exceed the capacity of those infiltration basins, that water will run off down to the culvert under the road. But that excess runoff cannot exceed the pre-developed condition. So all that off-site drainage and on-site drainage will be handled that way. In addition to that, they have to have swales around the homes so that any rainwater coming on the lot itself will actually be picked up by the swale around the home and drained from like the side of the home towards Old Mission, drain around the sides towards Mission Drive and the natural drainage swale in the back. It's kind of confusing which is the front and the back, but anyway.
Drain towards the new road, where the drainage wells will be.
The private driveway.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they'll once if and when the city council approves the project with these revised conditions, they'll have to revise the grading plans and all the other improvement plans and have those submitted and reviewed and approved by Public Works before they can and obtain permits before they can proceed. So.
And one last question: the Mercantile project, there was a sidewalk that was required to go along Highway 246. Is that's not gonna tie into this and get people back over onto Old Mission, or?
We had that idea, but the idea of, well, the cost of the easement through Lot 8, where the easement was proposed to go here to connect the Mercantile sidewalk to Old Mission, but we had an appraisal done, and the cost of that was would be, well, it was very high, and so that option was dropped.
So is the Mercantile sidewalk still going in along?
Yeah, the Mercantile sidewalk is planned along Mission Drive, along that north side of Mission Drive, from the corner of Alamo Pintado, and it'll end at the Verizon property.
But not on 246?
Yeah,
Yeah, along Highway 246.
Oh, along Highway 246.
Yeah,
So it's a sidewalk to nowhere?
Correct, at this time, which pretty much most of the sidewalks in Solvang most of the sidewalks in Solvang were built to nowhere when they were first built.
Yeah,
and over time they were connected up.
Right. Our city code requires that new developments put sidewalk along their frontage, even if it doesn't continue to go anywhere. Similar to what they're needing to do on Old Mission, we're requiring them to put a sidewalk. That's in your city code as a requirement to get sidewalk when you can get sidewalk.
I guess I just don't like encouraging people to hang out on the highway, but.
I have may I ask a question
Go for
about that? Is there where the sidewalk ends on the Mercantile property, is there going to be then access from that sidewalk to get up to the Mercantile property? Because it's going to be lower, the sidewalk?
We suggested that they consider like a stairway, basically, up the slope. That
And they don't wanna
landscape
do
slope
that.
where all the trees are being protected, very carefully protected. They said they would consider that, but they would have to come back to planning and everything, get approval and stuff, so that's kind of outside of,
What we can require?
well, we cannot require that now. It wasn't thought of, when the original conditions of approval were assembled and approved. But, and that would have to, it would be within Caltrans right away, so they'd have to get a permit to do that. But the American Public Works Association does have standard details for putting in stairways like that with railing and everything within the public right away. So.
So is the sidewalk in the public right away?
Yes, yeah, it's in the Caltrans right away,
So
which is
where is
public
it
right
going to
away.
be then? I mean,
The sidewalk, or?
how far away is the edge of the pavement to where it ends, where the right-of-way ends on 246?
Well, I can answer, the best way I can answer that, I'm not exactly sure. It's up that slope a little bit. They're planning to widen from the existing edge of pavement. This is along the Mercantile project, along Mission Drive, Highway 246. From the existing edge of pavement, they're gonna widen the asphalt pavement 2 or 3 feet, and then there'll be curb and gutter with a 5-foot wide sidewalk behind the curb. And then it'll slope up, and that'll basically tie in with minor grading to the existing slope that's there now.
Excuse me.
So my understanding is those plans have been submitted to Caltrans, and they're waiting to get comments back from a first review from Caltrans before they submit to the city for our.
We're slipping off the topic.
Yeah, sorry.
So let's go back to our project. Time is
Any
time is
other
of the-
questions?
It's getting late. Any questions to Matt while he's saying there? No? Are you through with yours?
Yeah, Gary, what was you wanted a slight correction to one of the conditions that you mentioned earlier in the?
One was the chain link fence to the, excuse me. Yes, it was on,
Chain link, yeah.
let me find it. Chain link fence
The orange.
to
Oh,
orange,
tree
to the
protection.
orange plastic.
It was originally orange, went to chain link.
That's, in section 10, I think, actually.
That was, Measure 3.
It's in the tree protection plan, actually. Yeah, it's tree, but it's in the conditions here as well.
It's 3A.
Yes.
The drip line plus at 5 feet shall initially be staked at intervals of 6 feet, inspected by the planning director prior to installation of the chain link, which shall be at least 3
By
feet in height.
inference, it was chain link, yes,
Yeah.
and then in the tree protection notes, it does say that. It does say chain link instead of the orange. So it would have to be corrected in both, but
Mhm.
if that's council's direction.
Do you want to mark that down as a possible change in the motion? Return that to, was it 4 foot? Is it 4
Yeah.
foot? 3 foot
foot.
orange
Yes.
plastic fencing?
Yes. That's correct. So, thank you.
Roy, you got a comment?
Not that I want to make out loud, no.
Okay, thank you. The, so the change will be, the change will be from chain link to plastic construction, temporary
If you
construction.
include that in your motion,
Yeah,
it can be.
okay.
I'd be happy to make the motion to accept.
Let's go on to further.
I'd be happy to make a comment.
Okay.
Since we can go off subject, I'm gonna go off subject. Holly, we need to work on, I happened to open on exterior lighting, and I was reading through it. We need to work on this. On just our language, on 140, on 174, our language on exterior lighting, dark sky compliant, low intensity, low glare, and a minimum height. What's that? It doesn't tell me anything.
Ah, I
It
see.
should be lumens, it should be foot candles, it's not necessarily to this project here, we just have to put.
What you're recommending is we have some standard template language
Yeah,
for.
let's look into IES, or
lighting.
maybe you and I can sit down and put something
That's fine.
halfway decent together, because low intensity means nothing.
I
Low
understand.
glare means nothing.
Those again were I believe that was taken from Skip Mesa, but I
Yeah,
know that
yeah,
if you feel like that needs to be more detailed, then
I think, you know, if we're gonna put stuff like that in, we ought to put something real.
Okay.
Because low intensity means absolutely nothing to me. It's not measurable. Low glare means absolutely nothing to me. You can argue anything you put out there.
So for this particular project, what is in here will suffice, but
Yeah,
going forward
it'll work.
for a template,
It'll
we
work.
can work on something.
If it's real dark sky compliant, which there are about who knows how many different versions of dark sky compliant, whether you're in Park City or Tucson or Aspen or they're all over the place. But there is some really good stuff out there.
I know that with the Board of Architectural Review, when they look at lighting, we watch Ways In too.
Yeah.
They do
Yeah.
look at that,
Yeah.
but let's work together. I'd be
Yeah.
happy to do that. We're working at standard language for conditions of approval anyway, for internal to our departments. Matt and I are, so certainly that'd be the time to do that. Thank you.
And I think IES, they have some pretty good stuff out there too, in this direction. So anyway, that's.
Thank you.
Other than that, I like the project.
I probably should have said this at the very beginning of these deliberations, but it's been 25 years, so I think I'm okay. But I was the first agent on the project with Jay Cerny, and it was a nightmare then. No, it was, because we were not getting any cooperation from the city at that time. Nobody was helping us. That none of you were here then, so don't get excited. But I just wanted to make note of that. But it does not influence I'm not benefiting in any way. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, now for the motion, we have some changes to the motion. No, that would be the chain link fence, mitigation measure 12 to eliminate that?
Yes, the mitigation measure 12, transportation slash circulation for the double yellow center line.
Right.
The project-specific conditions on the same page down there, number 6 for the guest parking.
What page is that?
The same, 177, the same
Oh, yeah, okay.
page, only under project-specific conditions, number 6. That is where the reference to the guest parking spaces, so I would recommend you eliminate that condition entirely, also.
Is there anything else?
The only other recommendation I would make would be to mitigation measure 3, where we started talking about the 10-to-1 ratio, and I would recommend that we take the initial study recommended language. It was meant to be in the conditions, and that will take care of that that particular issue.
Do you have all that, Lisa? Yes, I do. Very good. Okay, then can I have a motion?
I thought Neil made a motion.
Yeah, I thought he did too.
Well, he was starting a.
You guys can redo it, go ahead.
Well, it died for a lack of a second. But there was a motion.
Well, the motion didn't have the changes in it.
No.
No, huh. So now would you like to state the motions then?
No, you guys did all your little.
Okay, I'll make the motion with the changes and
The staff recommendation,
yeah, that too.
okay. That makes it easy.
You
Now,
better
can I have a second for that?
I'll second.
Who was that?
So what, were there any major changes other than the chain link fence and
Chain link fence, the mitigation measure
Well,
12.
the 4 mitigations, right?
everything, so it's just
The
better at staff
aesthetics.
recommendation?
Okay, it was, yeah, staff report. So the aesthetics, oak trees, hydrology, and noise.
Yes.
Those 4.
Those 4, and then the additional
the-
changes, the conditions of the wording we just talked about with the double yellow line
Yeah.
and those, so.
And the lighting?
No, the lighting will,
No,
lighting will
lighting
stay for
stays.
now.
Okay, now we have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Deuce?
Yes.
Toussaint?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mayor Richardson?
Yes, and that passes with a 5-0. And congratulations, guys. It's a great project, and we really appreciate the effort you're doing and the cooperation you're giving to the staff. They just sing in your praises all over the place.
Well, we want to thank them and you as well, because we're having a good time.
Thank you. Good luck.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, now it's 9:45. We can.
Yeah, the item 9, it's not critical that you approve that at this time. We brought it before you because we finally got the FEMA approval for that, that plan.
Well,
So if you would like to table that till the next meeting, we can do that.
Next month. And then, so,
I want you to notice that she gave us the corrected graph of the city structure.
yeah, right. So Fred, we won't call you for that one.
Are we gonna, is it gonna be solved in one meeting, or should we have a meeting tonight and then be able to come back if we have to later?
With what?
Like, right now, rather than tabling it, should we go take 10 minutes to talk about anything, or do you?
You can do it either way. We don't anticipate you making a lot of changes to it. It's been vetted through both the county OEM and state and
Actually, we're kind of
FEMA.
stuck. If we don't approve it,
You have to go back through the process, yes.
yeah, got to go back to the process and we don't get funding. So it could be, well, if you want, we can hit it real fast.
I don't know.
Call number 9, and Fred, you're limited to 2 minutes on number 9.
Item 9, Solvang Annex of the Local Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Staff report?
The plan before you is an update of the hazard mitigation plan approved in 2012. Staff began participating in the update of the plan in 2015 as part of the MAC committee. This update includes new hazardous data scenarios and risk assessments critical facilities analysis and mitigation strategies. Based on this data, the city developed mitigation action items. Having an approved hazard mitigation plan in place is required by law and enables a jurisdiction to apply for and obtain mitigation funding. Staff is recommending adoption of resolution number 17 next in order, adopting the Santa Barbara County multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan and the 2017 City of Solvang annex to that plan, and incorporating by reference into the safety element of the general plan.
Are there any questions of the staff report? Any questions of the staff report? Seeing none, is there a public comment? Fred Koval.
Yeah, Fred Koval, Solvang. When I look at page 200, my question becomes, does the city have earthquake insurance on its buildings?
Does the city have what?
Earthquake insurance on its buildings.
Yeah, we have policy. I'm not sure if we have a specific earthquake policy, but we have insurance through the JPIA.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so you may not have.
I can't answer that at this time.
Ooh,
without
interesting,
checking.
because earthquake is one of your 4 major conditions here. And, you know, I would expect you'd need to know that. Let me tell you, I personally, after 160 years, the last big earthquake, I just took out earthquake insurance. I think it's really important that it's going to happen. I also like to suggest that you might consider, if you don't have earthquake on your buildings, is to look into it and have a policy that would allow a blanket coverage for anybody, instead of having to go through my Covered California or whatever it's called. No, I think that's healthcare. Is that that you offer a blanket earthquake for every resident that has property in this city. You know, do something for the residents. Okay, my 30 seconds are up.
Thank you.
But I think you ought to look into, does the city have earthquake?
Thank you, Fred. Is there anybody else wish to speak? Seeing none, bring it back to council for action, discussion. Is there any discussion? If not, can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Motion to approve, second.
This motion been made and seconded for the staff recommendation.
Councilmember Deuce?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Toussaint?
Yes.
Mayor Richardson?
Yes, pass 5-0. Now we adjourn to closed session.
You got a committee?
Okay. We have a speaker slip though for, no we don't. Yes we do. For closed session. I guess it's in here somewhere. Yeah. Closed session for Fred Koval. Yeah.
You know, I've handed this sheet out before, and, you know, I talked about my Social Security, no increase last year. I got a demotion this year. I get less Social Security this year than last year. And, you know, I've been through the ranges, and I can see that the step increases are from one year to the next been average some 3.7%. That if you go between steps, it can be as high as 6.2%. I've talked about COLA being 1.9%. For the last 12 months, starting with respect to May, that's the latest I could get. I mentioned to you that Chris Dahlstrom, the manager over at ID number 1, got no performance increase. He got a 1.47% increase in COLA. I talked about that your liabilities for CalPERS is 4.67 million. 4.679 million. That's what you owe CalPERS in liabilities. And that was a presentation by Sandra. I didn't make that one up. So, you know, I look at all of this and, you know, I just wonder how this city can afford to keep granting increases. Thanks much.
Thank you, Fred. Is there any more public speakers? Seeing none, we're adjourned to closed session. There's no place for me to sign on the, reserve, this one, these two.